Welcome back to the EU SCC. Finch and Mifflin here. And Miff, if we didn't think the day was going to be sick, then I think set one was the perfect evidence of that, wasn't it? Elysium, who you heard Blazy talking about it, we thought was this unbeatable powerhouse, ends up dropping in a close 2-1 set. So I think that going forward here in this year, Miff, in the EU SCC, we should just stop at this. This team can't be touched nonsense, right? Everyone here has a chance to take down everyone else, and that is my mantra going forward.
Look, Finch, I can just sum up what you said in 5 words or less. I lost 145,000 channel points betting on Elysium, all right? I mean, I really thought going in, Blazy was hyping him up. These guys are nuts, Adapt King Tricks Tank, but it just doesn't pan out this way, that way this time. But again, we've got another matchup inside of Accounting Department versus Clay Soldiers coming up right now that I think it's kind of a similar story in that Accounting Department should be the favorites, but I'm kind of shook off of the first set of the day.
That's right. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be any money you're trying to count Clay Soldiers out before this game even starts, right? Instead, we should, give both of these teams their credit, I think, going in and how strong these teams are. And with Accounting Department in particular, obviously this is a lot of that old rival team that you all remember from being World's runners-up twice in a row. That's a pretty good resume to have. They still have that Collis, Wolfie, Deathwalker sort of core here to this team, Ice as well. I think that there's a lot of good stuff to expect from this team, but talk to me a little bit about this duo lane and maybe what you would expect from Collis as well.
Yeah, it's just that the duo lane for Accounting Department plays this uncharacteristic, aggressive style. I mean, already with these clips, Kalas just W King forward on the Kabrakan. They love playing around this duo lane throughout the early game, and then allowing Wolfie, Deathwalker, and Ice to make up the core of that late game, with Kalas just shifting his playstyle more so towards a facilitator role, maybe around that 30-minute mark. But I mean, Okeanos as well, a phenomenal hunter player, very versatile. We've seen him play the Apollo. He's got Heimdall in the back pocket, recently added Chernobog to the repertoire as well. I think, if anything, if you want to beat Accounting Department, you got to have an answer to their duo lane first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, technically, this young man is filling in the shoes of Vote, which are some mighty big shoes to fill.
Natural-born killer.
Yeah, it's pretty tough trying to take down NBK, right? So that's kind of the void he's filling in for this rival team that would otherwise be complete. And so just to kind of talk about how so far he's been living up to that, it's really impressive. This is a roster with tons of veteran talent, and then, kind of this younger member that we're seeing fill in perfectly. So we know how strong this duo lane is for Accounting Department, but, over on this other side, we got to talk a little bit about this Clay Soldiers duo lane, right? How they're going to be matched up against Kalas and Okeanos. We haven't seen a ton of action just between the duo lanes themselves. You usually need that gank to come on over, but there's action on the left side of the map. How do you expect this Clay Soldiers duo lane to keep up?
Look, I've seen Caspanify, I've watched Agent as well. These guys will usually play to the pace that their enemy plays to. If it's a passive duo lane, we'll see them match it. They usually really hit their stride in game 2 of any given set where they've already made that adaptation to what the opposition's able to do, but they are incredibly versatile. Agent in particular, who you see on the screen, is willing to bring out some pocket picks like Achilles. He was one of the first people to run the Athena in support in Season 8 out of the EU SCC as well. But if anything, I think that they should really shift their focus, dig their heels in deep, and say, all right, if we just withstand the early game, if we just hold our own in the duo, we don't necessarily need to win it, we just don't need to lose it, they could create this pace for the rest of their team to do what they need to do, in particular around their mid laner.
Yeah, and they're going to want to make sure they keep prioritizing these same picks, like the Apollo and the Athena, these picks that allow them to impact other parts of the map without really giving up a whole lot in their own lane. I think is going to be critical for them as well, is trying to find a way for both teams to have this kind of global presence. It's just so strong right now with the Chernobog, the Apollos, the Athenas, what have you. Those kind of picks, I think, just have got to be prioritized, especially with a team here like Clay Soldiers that isn't trying to start fires over in the duo lane, right? They're not trying to blow the house down. They're trying to kind of, as you said, bunker down and make it to that mid to late. So that's got to be their focus for them here moving forward. It's hard not to give my money to Accounting Department, but just seeing that loss to Elysium, that's going to slow me down. So let's go ahead and move then into the picks and bans here for game number 1. Miff, you saw the Tiamat back there in set 1, right? I mean, she's got to be banned in the top 3, you think?
I hope so, man, but the Tiamat got locked in with Apollo and Set, yeah, two other guys that are consistently banned in that top phase, just flanking her, right? So it feels like the European SCC has got their own little individual meta that's really started to establish itself. And the first ban coming through from Clay Soldiers being Tsukiyomi, I think that's a pick that, in particular, the EU SCC really likes. We saw Adapting go to it every single game in the last set.
Yeah.
When people aren't going to it, it usually is getting banned out in that first phase. But you called it, man. Accounting department don't want to put up with that TMI, don't want to deal with that split push potential, as well as the damage mitigation that she brings, and throws their first ban her way.
Yeah, and the Athena ban. I think that those are two excellent bans. It's to the point now where I've collected all the data. I no longer think there's a whole lot of reason to see Athena in your games unless you're just trying to get taunted. I don't know if you've somehow worked that into your plans, but I doubt it. So 100% on board with them getting rid of these 3 Guardians here at this point, right? Kind of seems unfair to call Tiamat a Guardian. Likely, I think we're going to see her exactly where we saw her in that game earlier, building largely damage in mid.
Yeah, Sobek gonna round out the bans for Clay Soldiers as well. Interesting when it leaves available so many top picks. I'm surprised Chernobog is gonna be the priority here, right? Maybe Apollo outclasses Chernobog a little bit because of the versatility that Across the Sky affords you. And as you said, Set's still available. I'm expecting Accounting Department to lock that in as their top 2. Apollo and now Set. We might as well just expedite the process. I don't know why they're playing with us, man.
Yeah, I'd have been fine with Guan Yu too. Okay. What I meant to say is I'd be fine with Wukong. No, I don't mean that in my heart. I want Guan Yu. I want the Prot Shred. I want the heals, bro. I want all that on my squad. I want the horse that you cannot lock down. Sun Wukong certainly not a bad pick either, though, right? Able to get plenty of pressure, has tons of safety with the bird transformation, or 72 transformations, as well as that Somersault Cloud. So can't complain about it, but Miff, I think you and I are in the same camp where, I don't know, maybe I want my Guan and my Set and my Apollo, huh?
Yeah, here's the thing about how Guan and Set are still available, Finch. They are. Anyone could lock it in, but instead it's going to be Tyr and Yanis rounding out the top 3 for Clay Soldiers. And Tyr is a pick that I want to talk about a little bit because with Bluestone being re-added in the game at Season 8, I think that really in Season 7, Tyr only struggled trying to finish up those kills, trying to get that last bit of damage that he needed to really facilitate his team. Now, with itemization changes and how the meta's really shaken out around on Chile and these bruiser items like Shifter Shield, Tyr is going to be an absolute menace in Season 8. I expect to see a lot of this pick. Ares, on the other hand, can't say the same.
Right, this is something of a Kala special. I'm thinking over there for Accounting Department. Was pretty close to his signature pick. I think you'd argue that or Fafnir during his tenure over in Rival, but I'm never going to complain about him locking in one of those 2 picks, so maybe not exactly what everyone else is playing, but something he's proven he can make work. And now Giannis over here for Clay Soldiers. We didn't mention him. We were talking about all these things that it feels like you have to deal with in picks and bans, but he's such a strong pick right now. If there ever was a time when his damage truly was inconsistent, it is gone. It's a distant memory at this point. I think this is an excellent first mid pick overall. And we didn't even talk about it. Scylla made it through this as well. A lot of great stuff is still up. I think right now, Miff, there's just a lot of good stuff to pick in general. You can't ban it all.
Yeah, here's the thing about how you brought up Set in the first phase of bans and how he's still available. He is, as is Guan Yu. It's a strange world, isn't it, that these guys are making their way this far through the draft and still being ignored. Cabrakan going to be the first pick for Accounting Department on that second phase. Now Clay Soldiers still need to lock themselves in a Guardian and potentially a jungler. This tier has flexed in the jungle in the past, so we could see it here again today, but I would expect it to likely go into that solo lane. Look, you need a Guardian, you still got plenty of picks, but if you need a jungler, Set's still on the table, man. I'm going to say it until they run out of the options to pick it, right? I mean, crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, the thing with the Accounting Department is I like this Cabrakan pick. It adds some flex to this draft about where this Ares might be going. We know this Cabrakan could be played by Collis also, so I love that for him. And now this Amir coming in kind of solidifies things for Clay Soldiers. Amir, one of the best Guardians you can pick right now. A little bit volatile. He can be either you win a lot or you lose a lot, but he's become more consistent. And Set being hovered. I mean, if we don't want to get trolled by production on this one, but yes, Set is getting locked in. It makes so much sense, except for how that's 9th instead of like 1st or 2nd, which is what I would have thought.
Yeah, 9th pick overall. Actually, 10 bans coming through. Yeah, we had to deal with Sobek before we let Set make his way in. Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and make a hard read on this Accounting Department draft. I'm willing to say that it is Ares jungle. I'm almost 100% certain with Apollo going to the ADC role and Neith going to be playing mid, Cabrakan in support, Sun Wukong solo. I mean, I'm essentially just reaching into a hat and hoping whatever I pull out is right because that's how versatile their draft is, man. And if we don't know, Clay Soldiers doesn't know.
Yeah, Miff, I think you using all of your just so much experience as you have to pull them out correctly and just dipping the hat over and letting them fall where they may are about the same at this point with the counting department, right? Because that's how flexible they are with those picks. So I'm right there with you. Meanwhile, over here with Clay Soldiers, they've quietly assembled a really good comp with a ton of rotational ability, and they have great all-in commitment as well. Is that how you want to see Clay Soldiers playing, getting to the fight first and then blowing someone up?
Yeah, it's got to be a spearhead draft. Anytime your initiator is Ymir and you've got gods like Tyr flanking him, it's about displacing that first target and then immediately jumping on him with the rest of your team. Use that mobility from Yanis to make sure he's always capable of hitting those priority targets. He's going to be slippery in his own right. And then you got gods like Set, who are just best in slot jungle, in my opinion, getting locked in 9th overall, by the way. Just crazy that he's able to dive into the backline. No one's really going to be able to deal with him too well. In particular, Ares should be food.
Yeah, this is a scary draft there for Clay Soldiers. Let's see if they could use it. Get it down to two of my favorite people, Gore and Dulcet.
Oh, thanks, Finch. No way we fail after something like that. My name is Dulcet. Goremiser's with me. Doug working the cam for us for accounting department versus Clay Soldiers. And Gore, look at this accounting department draft. They're throwing some spice at us immediately here. In game number 1, you got Hunter mid, Hunter in the traditional Hunter spot, but then Cabrakan and Ares filling out the other two to add some of that magic damage into the mix here. What an interesting draft to bring out for game 1.
And I really like it in the sense that I think Ice, like, Cabrakan jungle, sometimes you say it and you might feel ridiculous, but since Cabrakan has been out, I think I've seen him more in the jungle than pretty much any other role. I mean, there's a reason he has a fat Loki skin for a while there. It was because he did what Loki wanted to do, but better. Like, I mean, he's just really good at maybe isolating a target and locking him down. I think for the team fight, he's going to be really solid. Ares, like you said, when you're looking for magical damage, I always will bet on the guy that has percentage damage in there. And so I don't think they're going to be lacking in that department here. They're not lacking in the accounting department either, as they keep the numbers going in their favor. I really am interested, I think, of everything on this team, the Neath mid, because I think it's got the most room for success and the most room for failure. Like, Neath mid is one of those things that is either the meta or it does not belong, right? And up against the Yanis, you're going to have a hard time. Wolfie, though, has definitely been someone who's willing to play pretty much whatever he's comfortable with and willing to kind of drive forward new picks.
Look at all this damage already pouring into Kavas. He'll be able to walk out of that one. Yeah, this Neath almost feels like BMT-esque from the SPL last year.
Yeah.
That's something that Radiants love to play, that the ability to provide global pressure while not having to be there, ever so important. And so I want to see Wolfie get involved. Maybe not physically, but the moment that ultimate becomes available, start sending some somewhere. Assist Ice here on some early ganks. We have brawls going on everywhere. A minute and a half into this game. Duo lane seeing a lot of action now. Junglers in mid, providing a little bit of flair as well. Stun onto Ferrokrick. But the Honest will be plenty safe there in the back. Did hear a set of beads go off, and that was Saregazek on the set, burning that pair of beads. And Gore, this is an important team to have a pair beads against. This accounting department squad, plenty of beads burners on that team. My God, what is that damage? The Honest will get out alive, but that is big, now that this jungler has lost the beads here 2 minutes in.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the easy confirm, right? You're going to regularly have a root or stun potentially coming down from Wolfie. You're always going to have a stun ready from Ice. And then eventually, yeah, Deathwalker's going to have one. Ooh, man, the chains as well. That's a slow. That's pretty easy there from Gallus, let alone the ultimates that come on with it. There's just so much to deal with on the side. Like you said, not having beads is going to be a big deal for anybody. That goes double over here for Okeanos. Again, not necessarily too worried about the tier just yet, but once Ymir comes into the equation, especially when you're in this duo lane, you really want your beads up. That freeze is deadly.
Oh, the Deathwalker getting brawled out here by Sibby on the tier. Blink getting canceled out. Now Deathwalker on the wrong side of the lane, but it looks like Sibby realizes that he can't continue on. His cooldowns are down. Deathwalker's still largely up, so he's going to be able to win the back end of that trade. All of the pressure has been pushing against the accounting department duo lane. That means Ice can walk his way on over. Agent does not have mana. Well, he can't use Blink, so it's going to be first blood on over to Ice, and that's about as lackluster of a gank as you find. Ice just walks his way on in, then Agent will take a tumble.
And Agent, like, did pretty much everything that you could do to prolong that, right? Throws down the wall, makes it a little more difficult for people to get to him. but you're still Ymir, right? He gets those magic shoes now online, the tier 2 there for his boots. You're just not moving very fast. Like, look, if you're Ymir level 1, you're not known for your ability to run marathons, right? You are very simply just kind of casually strolling around the map right now. And I think that's one of those moments where you really get the feel for that, right? Ice is never going to have an issue closing the gap. Collis might, but it's not making a big deal. And like you said, he didn't get to use that blink. Uses it there, doesn't really get a whole lot out of it.
Whoa, Sorega has to escape from the ultimate from Ice there. He will do so, but this mid lane has been under constant pressure from this Kabrak, and Wolfie as well has been pouring out the pressure. A little bit low on mana, Ferricrick ahead in that department, so we'll feel okay when we're down to just standard farming. You're right, Gore, a moment ago, Agent blinks in, misses everything but the wall, so unfortunate there for the Ymir. Still able to put out some pressure, though. Surprising that despite the way that early engagement went with Ice walking in, grabbing first blood, it still feels like this Ymir Chernobog lane is just putting out much more pressure than Kalas and Okeanos can do.
And honestly, I expect that for a little bit. I think Apollo can keep up, but Ares, and this is actually deceptive, Ares has good burn against minions, but I still think, look, you're comparing it to Ymir Chernobog, right? Like, it's just going to be a little bit faster, safer, and easier for this blue lane to control the duo lane overall. Kalas needs to be up in their face for his damage. Same thing for Apollo, right? You got to get a little too close in order to make sure you can confirm all of the minions with your abilities. And Ymir eats that up. Agent would absolutely, I mean, just have the time of his life. That's a free wall. That's a free freeze. It's free damage, free real estate there for Clay Soldiers if they happen to walk forward. So I like the fact that accounting department are taking it relaxed.
Whoa, look at this invade. Everyone is here. No chance for Ice. I threw out everything in the kitchen sink there. Clay Soldiers now on the board, and they just walk towards Ice. That's unfortunate. No blink ready for the Kabrak. And I don't think anything's escaping there, Gore. I mean, you throw the Honest ult there as well. Look at that. 3 ultimates down for Clay Soldiers. Maybe a moment ago, Caspanify used that to get back on into lane. But at any rate, when you bring that much pressure, you better get the kill.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's one of those moments, like, I don't use the term overkill lightly, but I feel like that kind of felt like overkill, right? Like, there was nowhere he was going to go. I don't think everybody and their mother needed to be there for it, but at the same time, you got the kill, and that's what matters the most, I would guess, at the end of the day, is that the lockdown came through. That being said, Ice, this is a really interesting dynamic, because Kabrakan, it's not someone I think necessarily needs the lead, and anytime, your jungler is always going to be happy with the lead. Don't get me wrong. But if he falls a level behind, he's not really crying over it either. I think he's a little more item-based. His abilities do a lot of damage, whether you're one behind
Ymir
or
paradox.
one ahead. So you're pretty solid, and I feel like if he falls back down another time like that, you're going to start to feel it a little more at home, but otherwise Ice can just continue doing what he's been doing, running around with his sarcophagus fists, and just beating anybody who happens to stand in his way.
Well, right, I mean, it feels very similar to Ymir. Ymir will fall behind every once in a while, and you'll definitely feel a game where Ymir just kind of gets sat on the entire time, and how out of the game some Ymirs can be in moments like that. You wonder if there is extra pressure, though, Gore. I do agree with a lot of that with a lot of that breakdown there. I wonder, though, in a game where Ice is going to be providing a lot of that burst magic damage, if really the itemization and staying more relevant in a game like this, where you don't have traditional magic damage out of the mid lane. Do you think maybe that weighs on Ice here and trying to farm versus gank and keep himself relevant and trying not to fall behind when you realize, well, I've got to be doing a lot of the magic damage for my team?
That's a good point, especially because a lot of it, like you mentioned there, but when you look at it, they've got a lot of magic damage online or on the team just between an Ares and a Kabrakan, but it's all very, very close range. I mean, you're
right.
Less than halfway of an auto within the distance of somebody to make sure that you're able to land a lot of these attacks. Like 20 units, I believe, is the technical measurement, and look how easily Ymir peels that. I mean, look, Ferricrick should be dead for all intents and purposes if Ice is able to do that with no interference. But Ymir just says, cool, you're here, I'm here, and stops you from doing it. If a good wall comes between you, all of a sudden, there goes your damage. And so I'm interested to see, because of that, what Wolfie and Okeanos do for their builds. If one of them maybe goes Tank Buster, the other one goes Crit, or vice versa, or both one.
Well, maybe the first big fight of the game here in the mid lane. Agent left behind, but Ferricrick sends the through space and time right back through. That's going to bring Sorega right into the fray. It could be a double pull from Kalas, but instead the damage is there. And then Giannis will pull back the one and only kill here in this fight. Deathwalker joins over from the solo lane. Good damage, good slow, great wall from Ice Ice, but immediately frozen out. What a turnaround from Clay Soldiers. Okeanos will dunk on down from the duo lane. Messy fight here, but it's Clay Soldiers getting the 3-for-1 advantage.
Man, honestly, could go a little bit further. Okeanos does not
It's
look
Sibby.
healthy enough to get on out of here.
Oka
Forces the
beats.
beats. Look, I don't care
Whoa.
if you get the kill or not.
What?
As
No!
long as he's alive at the end of it. Okay, good. There's the pause. All right, as long as Sibby's alive, which he is, you get the beats, and you force Okeanos' ult there. I think that's worthwhile for you, even if you don't get the kill. Either way. Because, I mean, look at what's happening here, and Ferricryk does a great example of this. The damage turnaround. The biggest point where things fall apart for accounting department is because Ferricryk, even whiffing the ult, doesn't connect on that. Hits a huge unstable vortex that just decimates health bars, and that's the thing that Neath is lacking. Early game Neath with assumably a Transcendence, or presumably I should say, a Transcendence here that I guess she's going to pick up whenever Wolfie has that gold. That is a lot of damage, and Neath is, realistically, there's only two reasons to have Neath on your team. Her early game, which is a little bit better than some of the other hunters, and then her ability to give you an ult that provides, essentially gank ability, right? Here's free lockdown to get a kill.
Speaking of lockdown, there's plenty of it being put on into Sibby here. He'll turn around, send Ice Ice back underneath his tower range. He just bought time, though, for the set to join this fight as well. 2v2 over in solo, 3v1, though, over in what you thought was duo. But it's Kaspanify getting the easiest kill of his life. Okeanos will go down for the first time this game. Now you've got Chernobog, some free farm time here over in the duo lane, and a purple invade as well. Well played by Clay Soldiers, pushing that advantage where they know they can.
And this is where things are really going to get hectic. Again, one of the reasons that you would have want someone like Neath on your team is, in this case, just set up purely for Ice Ice, right? Hey, I'm going for a gank on duel. Cool, I'll Kaspanify, lock him down, easy. Now you go in there and you get the kill. Their roaming is 2-man, 3-man groupings on Clay Soldiers. One stun for a little bit of time isn't really gonna make the cut for your jungler to go over there and gank. So Ice Ice is starting to struggle, right? I said 1 level behind isn't necessarily the end of the world. 2 levels behind, well, you're starting to feel the lack of impact. All of a sudden, I'm not seeing a whole lot of Ice Ice, and I don't know what exactly to rely on there. And the same thing could be said because Set at 1-0-3 is having a pretty clean game. It's a lot easier for him to start roaming around this map and do the true assassin-style things, right? Go over there, show up to Okeanos, and be like, cool, kill you. Show up into the solo lane, come up to Deathwalker, kill you, right? It's not going to be difficult for Saraga to have a good jungle performance here, especially with the stone-cutting sword, the ability to cut down some of these frontliners and or just more tanky bodies that are on the side of accounting department. He's not going to struggle too much eating through those health bars right now. And that's really where accounting department, at least right now, this early to mid game, is where they need their control. I think some of them transition really well into the late game. Pretty much everybody but Neath translates incredibly well into the late game. But if you're falling behind 11 minutes in, it doesn't matter if you get to 24 minutes and you're 4 levels down, right?
Yep. Yeah, it feels that way for this accounting department team. They're hanging in there, right? I mean, it's a somewhat small gold differential, about 1.2k, very manageable as far as gold leads go. Let's see how maybe this small skirmish affects things. Ice Ice wants nothing to do about it. He'll drop the ultimate. Clay Soldiers there on the chase won't be able to follow up. Ferricryk dropped his as well. That's about all she wrote for this small engagement in the mid. Sibby's going to chase down Deathwalker. A little bit of damage plugged back and forth between the two solo laners. But it looks like both teams happy to walk themselves away. Gore, we wondered if it would be a Transcendence out of Wolfie instead of the Dominance. It's an interesting item pickup there. Return to that thought, see if Ferricryk will get the kill here on Okeanos, but it's the ultimate charged, and out he'll go.
And honestly, Dominance, it's one of those items that it's fresh in Season 8. My brain kind of overrode it for some reason. And so you go back to, what, the first 2 weeks, let's say? Dominance might have been the most bought item in Season 8 for the first, month that it was going out, and then eventually kind of fell off with some nerfs that comes through. But you getting basic attack focus, this is something that's a little more interesting to me, right? You get 200 mana off it, that's great for Neath. You get physical power off it, that's great for Neath. Get penetration on it, that's great for anybody, as long as you have it. But the basic attacks benefit from an additional 10%, so you have essentially 20% from one item on your basic attacks.
Yeah, feels good.
It's a little shakier to me on Neath. It still feels really good, but Neath
Right.
is known more ability-based, so it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic. I will also say that's not a bad thing. It's just an interesting dynamic to have on this god. Maybe one of the few that's going to be running things like Dominance if we see it becomes a kind of pseudo-meta, right? If she's available as an option in the future. But I'm really interested to see what Wolfie goes forward with, especially starting down this Mace tree. If it ends up going to, maybe potentially like a Jotuns, or there's not a lot of healing, so there's no need to maybe go for anything to try and get some, like a Brawlers for the anti-heal. So I really like the idea that you could just be going kind of, again, pure pin. I'm going to break down tanks, and if you have both of you in a tank-killing mindset on the side of a accounting department, that makes it a lot easier for, say, Ice, Deathwalker, and Collis to just decide to focus on the squishies while you guys take care of the tanks.
Well, Deathwalker picking up some early, I suppose, hybrid-y, but defensive items in his build there. Warrior Tabi, early power, Shifter Shield, depending on the state of his health bar. A little power, a little protections. Then a Void Shield to round out his top three. So this Sun Wukong Gore, we've seen sort of a variety of builds, variety of mindsets. Hybrid is one that tends to feel good, in my own experience. So Deathwalker, despite not being 2-0 like Sibi is on this tier, still in a great position to impact these fights. We'll see what Collis is able to impact over here. Unfortunate timing there on the ultimate as Caspanify breaks the ankles a little bit. Unfortunately, Collis won't get the pull there, and that's a pretty big cooldown. Blink and now the ultimate from this Ares, now down for a little bit of time.
And look at all those beads that are still available on the other side. It's almost, again, just nothing for it, right? You burn, I would argue, some of the most important things for you to have in a team fight on the side of accounting department, and you have nothing to show for it. So Clay Soldier's coming out ahead on that department as well. It just feels more comfortable, and like you said, when you look at Wukong, I actually like where Deathwalker is here. It's maybe a little less effective early on, but he was getting bullied the, 3, 4, 5 minutes in when we checked in on him. And so this is a build that more or less lets him just hang out, be alive. A lot of the other Wukong builds we see, the first 8 minutes, you're really struggling to just exist, and then you start getting your hybrid items online, and everything goes back to normal, right? But it really is those first few minutes that you struggle with, and here it looks like even potentially going to something like an Ankele a little bit later, just having protections to be a secondary front line, and this should really allow Ice to pursue a full-on damage build as opposed to having to kind of hybrid it up there in the jungle as well.
We wondered where that build would fall. Let's see how much damage he's able to do. Oh, big-time lockdown from Clay Soldier's accounting department being decimated here. Sorega joins the fight, double kill for the set. Okeanos dunks in, but he's way late to the party here. Clay Soldiers, big runaway fight for them. Maybe some injustice in the world given that setup that it's only a 2-kill swing, but a beautiful team fight from the blue side.
I mean, there's no other way I can choose to describe this other than surgical, right? I could actually see the scalpel incision from the team as they, it blows up into this massive fight, but at the very beginning of it, Clay Soldiers knew exactly how they wanted to engage on that and how they wanted to follow it up. So much to the point where you're still forcing beads, small things like that, right? A slow that comes out there is enough to burn the beads from Okeanos. And they're barely running away with some of your relics. Finally, most of those beads are down, those shells are down, but it took accounting department damn near everything in their arsenal to make that happen. I mean, yeah, Collis didn't have his ult, so maybe there's a benefit now in the timing of the beads being off compared to where the ult is. But I haven't seen enough from Collis right now to think that he's really going to connect on enough people to make it worthwhile. And the difference, at this point, a single target, it's still going to be better than nothing, but who's he going to pick, right? Can you get Ferricrik? Is he going to be easy to lock down? Are you going to be able to find somebody else? I just don't know. I need Collis to be a little more proactive in setting things up.
Right, it's such a different feeling. Was it SCC last year where it was jungle Ares, maybe? I don't know what I'm thinking of, where we saw an Ares in the jungle.
I think we got
they
to
literally just walked
too.
at people, right? I mean, you just walk at people, you walk into the mid lane, you attach a couple chains. I mean, we've seen such a wide variety of how easy or difficult it can be for an Ares to burn beads sometimes, I suppose, where this game Collis is having a hard time doing it, at least from the one bit that we saw from him rotating over to the duo lane there. But it's a far cry from what we've seen some Ares do, where they only have to walk towards the enemy mid laner to get those beads burnt off. It is a Gold Fury, though, that both teams starting to look at now. Clay Soldier is going to get the mid lane tier 1 tower down, balloon that gold lead out just a little bit further. Remember, 1.2k 5, 6, 7 minutes ago when we checked back in. right around that 2,500 gold mark. So Clay Soldier's methodical in building up a lot of that lead. And Gore, they haven't had to pay much for it. Agent, the only one who's gone down, one of those very early in the game, and then one of those in a recent skirmish. This Ymir's finding his value, and that's ever so important when you compare to the Ares on the other side.
Yeah, like you said, finding his value is the best term for it. A lot of good walls, a lot of good freezes, just good, again, proactive play. You can tell Ymir, Agent here, is setting up a lot of this. And on the back of that last fight, they get that Scorpion. Maybe not big in and of itself. The enhanced buffs, definitely something to think about. Ferrocryk and Caspanify here on the left-hand side of the map, both going to have enhanced buffs. I believe it will be this next spawn up for Caspanify, because that one, if I'm checking my math correctly, is actually Accounting Department's purple buff that he has around his back right now, or his belt right now. But it opens up this Gold Fury. If they get another fight like that, that's a pretty free engagement onto a big objective.
Carlos blinks in. There is a set of beads burnt this time. Ferrocryk now, no beads for the next fight. So if this Ares is able to walk his way in, get a big pull, suddenly the Giannis might be in a bit of a tough spot. That means Accounting Department start to move their way on over towards the left here. Ward coverage for both teams on either side of the Gold Fury pit, so nobody is going to be surprised by this small engagement here. Gore, I will say, despite a bit of a deficit here, and we will take a quick pause in a moment to talk about it, I like the way that Accounting Department are at least maintaining some composure here in this game. The gold lead is relatively small in the grand scheme of gold leads that we've seen. And they're still posturing around this Gold Fury. This is a team that still feels like they can compete in some of these big team fights.
And that's the biggest thing. They are on what I would argue is like the precipice of getting knocked out in the sense that you lose the next fight or two and you lose a Gold Fury. It's very easy for things to start spiraling out of control from there, right? Your gold lead is now 5,000. I guess your gold deficit at that point is actually over like 5,000 or more. It's very difficult in terms of items to keep up. It's difficult in terms of levels to keep up. And so fights typically start to favor that lead a little heavier. But when you're still within that 5,000 range, it's not easy, but it's still doable, right? Like you have to just be careful about your engagements here. And like you said, that's pretty much where they are. They're a little more careful about where we want to poke in and where they want to try and get in there. But all it is one fight on either side. For one side, it is to make your lead further and maybe cement yourselves as the team that is winning this game. On the other side, it's find your way right back into it. You win one fight, you get a Gold Fury, it's even all of a sudden. Maybe you even have the lead afterward, and you can really start to swing things in your favor. You go back over, take a Scorpion, let the Fire Giant and the Pyromancer spawn, and you just set yourself up for more success. So again, it is on, I would say maybe flip of a coin, realistically, as to where this one can go, and it's all about the setup. I'm looking at Collis. I think if Collis can find a really big ult, or can burn a lot of beads, just relics in general, with an ult, then that's going to be the setup that his team needs to follow up. They have a lot of stuns and again, setup afterward to try and find a big engagement, even if Ares isn't necessarily the one facilitating it. But I think it has to be on the back of Collis finding something big to at least burn out the relics.
I agree. I also haven't seen, for what it's worth, World Weaver do all that much out of Wolfie. I mean, we saw that one ultimate onto Ferrocryk in the jungle, but Giannis was able to sort of walk away from that. We've seen the World Weaver used at the SPL level to set up fights across the map, set up ganks, things of that nature. Granted, your team's a little bit behind, so those opportunities maybe a little bit harder to come by. It's got to be frustrating, though, for the Accounting Department, right? I love the way the Clay Soldiers have itemized their relics here in a way that aggravates the Accounting Department. The Accounting Department wants to burn those beads, lock you down, set up this fight. You got 4 sets of beads to burn through. And then since you have an Apollo and a Neath, you also have 3 shells at the moment to work through as well. The survivability purely from the actives of this Clay Soldiers team is going to be so difficult to burn through. And really, if you kind of want to then focus a little bit on Clay Soldiers, Gore, I mean, everyone has really done their job. I talked about how Agent has only died a couple of times so far in this game. But I've loved what I've seen out of Sorega as well. This set off to a 3-0-3 start, only behind the solo laners in the damage department, absolutely making his presence felt.
Absolutely having an impact. And again, was not banned in any of the 10 bans in the game and was like 8th pick, 9th pick. Like, it took forever to get there, and yet you're still seeing the impact of why Set is incredibly good. The thing that is really, again, kind of interesting to me is watching that dynamic of not just Set, but like you had highlighted, having all those shells, because once you go for double Hunter, upgraded shell is maybe your biggest nemesis, because it doesn't matter if you went crit build, it doesn't matter if you went pin build, whatever items you have on your belt, there's just now block stacks on the other side for everybody that gets hit, and you're just not going to be able to do damage. You have to knock those off one by one. And like you said, there's 3 of them. Serga has one of them. I believe the other 2 are on the duo lane there. So you have so many opportunities to stop damage, just straight up ignore it on the side of the Clay Soldiers. You're not worried about Wolfie. You're not worried about this Apollo because, I mean, they're hardly getting anything done to begin with.
Gore, I'm not above, admitting when my theory crafting kind of goes by the wayside here. Does upgraded shell absorb, because I'm bringing this up, Polynomicon built here for Ice, so if you time it properly, I suppose a upgraded shell would absorb the poly proc, and then suddenly Ice's damage output is maybe a lot lower.
It's gone. Yeah.
As the fights go on. So that's something to look at in these fights here as well. Caspanify yet again pulls a bit of a Houdini. This time, though, his tricks run out, and Deathwalker will grab a kill. So the solo laner for the accounting department rotates on over to duo lane, but Okeanos wants nothing more to do here. He'll take to the skies, land back down towards the Gold Fury. What a call from the accounting department. You grab a kill on the enemy ADC, immediately over to the Fury.
First kill in like 10 minutes, it feels like, right? It's just been so long. The problem is they start this Gold Fury, Dave. I don't think they have the secure for it.
Accounting department are able to lock it down, though, secure or not. And now it's Clay Soldiers working in. They want to fight. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Ice does some damage. Okeanos does as well. Sibby locked into the walls of this Kabrak. And Okeanos with the double. Accounting department get the Fury, and they get 4 kills if you include Caspanify.
I mean, almost like it's nothing, right? They walk over, they kill Caspanify, and they force a fight. That's actually the thing that I think is the most impressive. From that deficit we were highlighting when that pause started, force the engagement from Clay Soldiers and go from what was, 8-1, 7-1, and now it's 8-6. They get 5 kills, or 8-2, sorry. Make those 4 kills in the span of just a few seconds because they decided that was when the engagement was going to be. And you can look at that spiraled straight down, or that spike, I should say, straight down. All of that gold in their favor is important. The experience may be just as important because levels are going to be pretty much equal now. And then you look at that gold, it's going to be the difference between some of those items, some of the upgrades maybe that they need. Only 1 shell over here on the side of accounting department, but look at where they are in their builds. Just slightly behind where Clay Soldiers were, but now that they're spending, they're getting a little bit more of an upgrade. I'm seeing a couple of those starters getting upgrade, as well as finishing off things like Shinsai's and Odysseus's bow. It's a really huge back for the accounting department there.
And the way things changed in the blink of an eye, it was a 2,000-something lead for Clay Soldiers. Immediately gone, and even more so shifted over. It's like a 4K gold swing over the course of a couple of seconds. Now look at the way accounting department are positioning. Over by the Pyro, Fire Giant as well. Right on cue for about a Fire Giant, not all that early, not all that late. Pyromancer instead for Wolfie and Ice. The objective being looked at here, nobody from Clay Soldiers in range. So they're able to lock that down, go back, spend some money, come back for an FG fight maybe. And you gotta think, Gore, that all of the momentum, all the confidence in the world now are with this accounting department team, especially starting to look towards a Fire Giant fight over the horizon.
Yeah. You've got to keep your eyes, in these cases, in my eyes, onto Wolfie. Because watch where he leaves these weaves, right? It's something in Neith's kit that is very fun. Stuns like this, easy setup. That should honestly just be a kill onto Serga, but it might not cassette things. But it's one of those moments where Wolfie, not just the ult, but the weaves that are laid throughout the Fire Giant pit, that will help and be essentially their entire confirm. I think Freyrikrik has a good opportunity to steal this away, but if Wolfie plays this right, it should be easy to detonate a lot of weaves and just get that damage out for yourself.
Look at this, 3 ultimates from both teams scored down prior to the FG fight starting. Kind of mirrored off one another. You still have the duo lane ultimates for Clay Soldiers, still have jungle and solo lane for the accounting department. So Deathwalker, the ability to survive and then re-engage with some damage in these fights, that's going to be big. Ice, the ability to lock down some of these corridors will be big for the accounting department. He's done just that. Caspanify forced into the ultimate up into the sky. Deathwalker there as well. Big damage on the drop down. And accounting department have got it. Shell shields so much damage for the accounting department. And now it's Okeanos who's able to swoop on through. Double kill now for the Apollo. Sibby slowly being burned away. And Kalas has made his impact. A 3-for-1 trade. Accounting department on top.
And Kalas doing exactly what you need to do there as an Ares. I'm just going to chase you till you're dead. You're low enough that we have to make sure we get rid of you. And with Freyrikrek's ult being down, unless he's going to tempt Fate with an unstable vortex over a wall, this is a free Fire Giant for Accounting Department. He's over here in the neighborhood. I don't know if I like him being alone on this side of the map just in general. Look at the ward coverage from Accounting Department. If he took the wrong step, the wrong path to get near there, that's a pretty easy kill. And, ooh, just shy of potentially finding a kill onto Wolfie there. If that connects plus an unstable vortex right afterward, you at least get one of those Fire Giant buffs off board. But with two Hunters, Dave, both going for a very heavy accentuated pin build, both with Fire Giant, look, whether I'm a tank, if I'm Agent or Sibby, I'm a little scared, but if I'm a tower, I'm quaking in my, boots that they have underneath the map, we'll pretend. Same thing for the Phoenixes, because those structures are going to melt.
Right, it's like the Easter Island head situation. Have you seen those drawings where, like, underneath the
they
ground
have, like,
is like
the
a full
body?
body? Right, the towers have legs and boots underneath the map. I think that tracks, Gore. I think the I think the towers could be quaking on boots or whatever root structure they've got going on down there. Plenty of gold to swing on back. 3 tier 2s as well as a tier 1 over in the duo lane. All that extra push power there as well. And the slowdown really out of Sibby and Sorega has been noted. Ferrocrick has somewhat been able to get involved, about middle of the charts as far as damage goes, 600 or so behind Wolfie. But Gore, we saw an earlier fight in the jungle that Clay Soldiers kind of ran away with. But the Accounting Department, whether through itemization or just better coordination, have finally been able to turn those fights in the jungle that Clay Soldiers had been feeling confident in earlier on.
I think it's the engage factor. There's 3 blinks on the side of Accounting Department, so even if you are able to kind of scare them off, win a fight even, they have really, really good capabilities of getting back in there and forcing a fight with you that you might not be comfortable with. Once those shells are burned, and I'm looking at the timers, the ones for Agent and Caspanify are right on top of each other. It's one of those things I believe, I'm going to stop myself before I say it, but I want to say that it was timed the stack that you can't stack the block stacks anymore, so that's dangerous to do.
Agent half HP. Kalas is connected on both of his chains. Gates opened, but Agent has a free trip on back into his base here. Both towers at the blink of an eye gone over in the duo lane. Now it's tier 2 and mid being looked at by the Accounting Department. You've still got about a minute and 40 seconds remaining on your FG buffs. This is going to get worse before it gets better for the Clay Soldiers. Look at the space that Deathwalker's providing. This set just can't participate. In the meantime, Sibby has lost nearly all of his HP. It's the dash away as well as the beads and the blink from this tier. Through space and time, sent through. Kalas pulls Agent right back into the fray. There's a big pull in the burn away damage. Will get it done, and now Ares back on the board as well. Caspanify uses the beads. Nice portal from Ferrocrick to provide some peel. Accounting Department, though, Gore starting to storm the gates. Deathwalker picks up the first, and now the rest of Accounting Department look towards the Phoenix.
And there's not a lot to stop them here. I mean, what are you going to be able to do? Sibby, you have your ult, not really known for turning things around. I put a lot of pressure onto Zek here. If you're in the jungle, this is the best place for Set to really start to pop off, but he's just not been able to get a lot of damage out there.
Another portal there. Big silence. Wolfie picks up a kill. The Titan melting away. Accounting Department, do they have the legs? For the time being, it looks like yes, as the rest of the team turns back towards the Titan. And what a turnaround we had here in game number 1. Clay Soldiers off to a rocket start there in game 1. What is it? A one fight around that Gold Fury? And that was all she wrote here. Accounting Department will take game 1.
It's a really good gank over there onto Caspanify into a forced fight that was uncomfortable, I would argue.
Yep.
But, I mean, even still, right in the middle of that Gold Fury, it felt like it could go either way. I think Accounting Department had just enough to make sure they get that secure, and once they were able to lock that one down, it was nice and easy for them.
Yeah, there's your Ramsey update for everyone who had been wondering. Poor dog got spayed the other day. She's been doing well, though. She's in a donut instead of a cone. So, thumbs up in the Ramsey department. Ramsey has been nice and tired. We're going to lay down once again. I might lay down here, too. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have game 2.
Big win there in Game 1 for Accounting Department Myth, able to get the better of Clay Soldiers. So now we're going to be moving deeper into this set where we hope the Clay Soldiers can get another win and kind of get us into that third game and really make sure we have a back-and-forth match here. But first, we got to talk about how they got this dub. What did you see as the big difference maker? I think you guys got to be drawn to Okeanos, obviously, in the performance that he had, but sort of how did he get set up to be that dominant?
Well, I'm not even sure that you can really nail it down to one player in particular. It's just been this consistent thread from Accounting Department shifting their ideology and their strategy towards playing in this late game. I said last week the narrative was, how often can Accounting Department get absolutely blown out of the water in the early game and then make a miracle comeback at the 25-minute mark? And so far, since SCC qualifiers and SCC last week and this week, it's ringing true still. They're able to just make it to the point of the game where they're most comfortable and then group up around this rival identity that they used to have around the multi-guardian / tank frontline double hunter, and it's just so hard to deal with come late game.
Yeah, I mean, they were a bit known for this strategy, you know, them and Mouse Sports back when this team was formed in the SPL of running this double hunter with this. It was triple guardian then, but this is still pretty similar. They're forward and still able to get plenty of magical damage out of these guardians. And yeah, I think a lot of these are going to be Okeanos clips. I don't have any complaints with this one from the guys in the back setting this up here for us. Exactly right. I'm at a pop-off performance, and we saw there it was 7-2 at one point in this with a 3 to 4K advantage for Clay Soldiers, and they just could not hold on to it. They struggled a little bit, I think, getting Sibby involved early in this game. Need a little bit more out of Farrakrick in that mid-roll too, so I don't think that Clay Soldiers really need to start over by any means here, Myth. Just a little bit of that execution needs to be cleaned up because they did have that comfortable lead they wanted initially. It's just that Accounting Department pushed through it.
Yeah, just struggles from Clay Soldiers around confirming the objectives, the stuff after the stuff, the Gold Furies, the Pyromancers, the Fire Giants, taking those team fights in the jungle is really where they just felt like they didn't know where they were going. There was a lack of direction, maybe. Agent would start a fight off, but he wouldn't have the follow-up. Maybe Saragazek and Farrakrick kind of do up, try and shut down Wolfie, and then from there, it was just a disjointed engagement from the Clay Soldiers consistently throughout the late game.
Yeah, and I know that you're... You know, can sometimes be kind of harsh on Suragazic. That's the best I can do here on this name. But Myth, I think you're kind of right in this game, right? A little quiet for him with the 9,200 damage on one of the very best junglers in the game. This is the kind of pick that if you're locking it in, you should be dictating the pace of the whole match, I think. We didn't really see it from him here.
Yeah, just the early game as well from Saragazek was a little bit lacking. He wasn't nearly as present as you would expect. I think potentially we saw more ganks in mid from Kalas than we did from Saragazek. Or even in solo lane, Kalas was making his presence known over there. I really expect great things from this guy because I've seen what he's able to do on the field. His mechanics are certainly there. It's just decision-making, and that's been the story for Clay Soldiers throughout the entirety of the year so far. It's just they clean up that decision-making, and this team is really going to be primed for that next step to be that big contender within the league.
Myth, I'm going to go ahead and say it. That's the biggest differentiator between all these teams. There are very few players who are so mechanically nuts that you don't have many options against them in terms of the skill gap anymore. So go and move into these picks advance or game one. I think it mostly comes down to your decision-making, you know, and where you're looking to apply your pressure and how. So once you get there, and if you can recognize where your windows are, that's kind of the big differentiator between all these teams, at least for me. And maybe in the SPL level. Here in the SCC, it's a little bit more true. There are some teams who are just out there playing a little bit better than everyone else. But, you know, the higher the level of competition, you know, the smaller that gap gets in just terms of who's pressing their buttons better.
Yeah, the margin becomes much, much thinner. You can only land Thor combo so consistently, right? You can only hit these ultimates through walls so many times before it becomes a little bit more routine. And it's about almost becomes a chess game at the higher level of play.
Agreed.
But here at the SCC, I think you've already highlighted it. Maybe there is a little bit more mechanical difference between these individual players. But look, we're going to talk about the chess game that's happening right now, and that's P's and B's. So far, Clay Soldiers looking pretty good. Tsukiyomi and Aphrodite taken off the table. Athena and Tiamat by the Accounting Department. But again, man, a lot of value picks getting left on the table. There's still Apollo, you got Ymir, Set, Chernobog, all these picks that I think anyone would be happy to have.
Yeah, these are great top few bands, and I like the span in the Aries. There was something we talked about it going into that game one about how those were the big flex picks, right? Like where the Cabrakan and the Aries were going to go. Just break that up, man. Kind of limit Collis here a little bit in terms of that Aries support and try and limit it there from them. Meanwhile, over in the accounting department, these are just some top metal bands. I don't want to do with Tiamat or Athena or Yamoja, the same bands from game one for them. I don't have any problem with them keeping with it. And Clay Soldier's going to take Chernobog first overall here. We talked about how these first few picks are so important. There's so much value out there. I know Chernobog's a really good hunter right now, but is he your #1 overall pick?
He's not for me, man. I'm still an Apollo truther. I still think being able to choose where you land is such a versatile tool instead of having to jump into a shadow that Chernobog might be a little bit outclassed on the rotation factor. Maybe Chernobog makes up for it a little bit with that passive, his auto attack stem, incredibly strong. But Clay Soldiers, I think, may have come away with a better draft here if they choose these next two wisely, because accounting department going towards Yanis and Sun Wukong, when there's still so much value out there to be taken. I mean, go to set. We don't have to wait till 9th pick. We know you can play it. Might as well take it now, right?
I think they are trusting that it's going to come back around for him, and did in game one, right? So maybe it can in game two once again here. This tier, I love it. Sibi clearly looks comfortable on this pick. He had a moment in mid where I thought he might be able to find an early kill, but did some great maneuvering to get out of there. I don't have any problems giving this back to him. And now the Sobek being hovered. Believe this was Amir in that slot before. Maybe not taken exactly here, but I don't have any complaints about Sobek either. Real strong Guardian.
Yeah, last game, Sobek was in that third ban slot from Kelly Soldiers. Now they get to pick it for themselves. Maybe we see them pivot towards a Ymir ban if accounting department doesn't take it in this slot for themselves. Instead, though, it is going to be Ardio, which might dissuade that Ymir ban from coming through, because it is likely going to be Ardio into that support role. Could flex over in a solo, have Sun Wukong in the jungle or something along those lines. But as of right now, both teams, I think it's pretty clear where these are going to land out. I'm expecting Sun Wukong solo, Ardio support, Tier solo, Sobek support, Yanis in mid, and Chernobog in that hunter role for the Clay Soldiers. So it should make it that much easier for them to select where these bands are going to land, and already accounting department targeting out mid.
Yeah, I like this. They've already got the Honest on board, taking care of Scylla. Feels like maybe you also got to get Morrigan too for you to really have limited that mid roll well, but already getting off to a great start here, I think, with these bands. But they're going to go to the Chang'e. This has been a popular pick. We haven't seen it as much just lately, like in the last couple of games we've seen from the SCC, but Blink Chang'e has been terrorizing every game that I've been in, so I think I have the same fear of that accounting department do.
Agreed, man. That Chang'e with Conduit Gem is just a menace to deal with. That mobility, the ability to poke consistently as well. It cleans up her early game and mid. Chang'e used to really struggle with that clear. No more because of that passive from Conduit Gem. But Jingwei is going to round out the draft for Hunter as far as we're concerned for accounting department. With Apollo still available, by the way. That global ultimate's still available. We used to think that on her would have been that second or third best in slot, but it seems like the EU SCC. Danza Burrow also incredibly strong, but it's just going by the wayside this time around. Clay Soldiers hovering Persephone, and that's a pick that I really do like into this accounting department draft. That cripple from the ultimate is going to be so impactful, not only into Yanis, but to make it harder for Ardio, Jingwei, and Sun Wukong to operate. You don't really need to land the ult either. Hit a wall, anyone in that range is going to get crippled.
Whoa, and it's Loki coming in at the last minute, and Loki in the jungle here too, so looks like we're going to be seeing that full damage Loki. I mean, Miff earlier, not earlier in this exact day, but kind of the last time we were watching this SCC, you were defending this full damage Loki up against me. You still a full damage Loki defender here, or maybe not loving it?
I think that Loki is really good with a little bit of a bruiser tendency, right? You want things to get you through that initial burst, especially considering you can't just sit there and use the third ability and full channel it. It takes so long, man. My man's gonna slice it up, bro. It just doesn't work out for him. But Fenrir getting locked in for accounting department, that's interesting as well. Both teams. Set's still available, Finch. Whatever. Fenrir is really good. Seething Howl gives you a ton of power and lifesteal. Unchained is a fantastic engage tool. But I think one individual matchup that's going to be really good for this Fenrir is into Tyr. If he uses Ragnarok on Tyr, Tyr passive doesn't affect that. He's CC'd for longer than a second. Means that the rest of your team should have a much easier time shutting him down.
Yeah, I'm just wondering for accounting department, can this Fenrir kind of handle the engaged duties? Because I feel like a lot of it is going to fall to him. Ardio, maybe not the best at it. Her long-range route is kind of some of the best she can do to really get those fights started off. How do you see the engaged for accounting department going?
Yeah, it could be through Fenrir trying to use that Ragnarok to find an initial pick. It could be off the RDO finding a ranged engage with the route as you already highlighted, and Sun Wukong as well. But it might not be a hard CC engage style. It could just be a spearhead front line with Jingwei acting as a solo agent, as will Yanis, just trying to find poke wherever they can. Because the front line of Accounting Department is nigh unkillable. How hard is it to shut down an RDO or a Sun Wukong? If Fenrir decides to use Ragnarok defensively, it's super hard to shut him down as well. I think Clay Soldiers have their work cut out for them.
That could certainly be an interesting part of this game. Game number 2 between Clay Soldiers and Accounting Department. Let's get it started.
And with the potential 2-0 on the line, Accounting Department, Goremizer, go towards the Jingwei. We haven't seen that one here in a little while. It's been Apollo and Chernobog through and through. Either team happy to get one or the other. And with Apollo still on the table, it's the Jingwei pick for Okeanos here. Gore, Accounting Department bringing out something new.
It's one of those things. Jingwei is entirely fine, right? Like, it's one of the, like, maybe she's not going to be this stellar first pick we got to see a lot last year, but it's one of those things. Like, again, nothing really changed significantly about her, and so she's going to get to follow a similar path. Like, she is your easiest fallback hunter, right? Like, you can guarantee she's going to do well. You know she's safe. For some people right now, Heimdall has been the backup, right? Oh man, my Apollo, my Chernobog, they're gone. What do I do? Yo, I will go Heimdall. But I think Jingwei falls pretty much into the same category, right? Hey, I can do a lot for my team, and I can stay safe while doing it. That is the perfect mix whenever you have it. So I think we're going to get to see Okeanos have a pretty decent game. The biggest difference maker is going to be that Caspanify can, at any time that ult is available, just decide to join a fight and be there, whereas Okeanos is going to have to make the, I'll call them the Netroid decisions, right? Do I sit here and split push a tower? Do I run 3/4 of the way across the map to try and help in the Fire Giant pit? Like, what do I do here? Because it's not going to be easy to just travel over there the same way Caspanify will.
God, what a story for Netroid as well. Gore, every time we start talking about SPL, I get so excited. It's like the morning before your birthday or Christmas, but like a week long now. We got so much excitement leading on up into it. Netroid's going to be playing against his former Sanguine teammates a whole lot this year. So much to look forward to. April 23rd, by the way, SPL begins, so make sure to tune in for all of that. But we got some great SCC to get through before the SPL kicks right on back off. We saw a lot of this in the previous game, Gore. A lot of pressure against Okeanos and Kalas over there in the duo lane. Looks like Agent Caspanify are going to be able to do a lot of the same here as well. The looming threat of a Sobek just kind of hanging out there in lane is enough to force you beneath your tower most of the time.
Yeah, all of the time. It should be, at least. Like, I mean, a good Sobek is going to be the biggest threat to you in the duo lane, especially when you're running something like an RDO, right? RDO, I think, in and of itself, you get plucked, you stun, you dash out. You're not in danger, but you're also a little curious as to why RDO. Like, you're not going to be able to get a whole lot done if you're using your entire kit to just trying to escape something that Agent is going to be able to do for free. But this is twice now, Dave, that this duo lane over here for Clay Soldiers has just had a dominating performance.
Wow, Civi uses the beads and did not matter at all. Ice Ice just walks on over into the solo lane there, grabs first blood of the game. Now Kalas turning around some of the damage. Double stun from this RDO. Okeanos half HP, can't walk any further out. Again, the threat for Sobek pluck is enough to keep Okeanos at bay here. I like the timing, though, for Clay Soldiers to get a little aggressive. You know that Ice Ice is on the other side of the map. Let's put some pressure out here. Kalas now gets pulled right back through. Body block just for a moment, but the RDO is able to work her way away. The long-range damage isn't there as well, but you're playing with fire, Gore, the longer you stay.
We're at level 3, so RDO's heal isn't necessarily going to be the end-all, be-all that you're writing home about, but you can see Kalas isn't yet retreating, right? And this is, look, as a support player, I can say this is the most uncomfortable portion of the game because you still want to do the things that you're supposed to do. I still want to body block for you. I still want to set you up. I do want to do whatever I can, but I can't without taking my health.
Wow, Civi doesn't have beads, and Ice Ice realizes that's the ultimate on in, but there is the ultimate for the tier as well. Oh, the up-down, well-timed from Ice Ice, the stun on the back end of it. And the solo lane is suddenly a wasteland against the Clay Soldiers Accounting Department. 2 for 2 on Civi ganks.
Yeah, and honestly, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I'm actually kind of sweating for this Loki over here. Again, a lot of other junglers available, but they choose this Loki. I want to know how it's going to perform because We've seen, again, that kind of hybrid tank Loki. It did decently well during Worlds when it kind of started to make a run for itself. But at the same time, there's something that is still pretty much true about Loki no matter what, and that is choose one, they'll die, and you're out, right? Like, you don't get to do much else after that. It's just, can you get away in those instances? Is Saragazek isn't able to start finding some ganks to make up for the pressure that is now being applied by ice. Finrir doesn't really fall off in the late game. He has a solid early game. He has a pretty solid late game. It just kind of transitions style. Early game is, well, this, bully Sibby the game, and then late game is ult machine. But right now, the solo lane is just having trouble.
Definitely a guaranteed kill there, you feel like.
Ice, where are you going?
Connected from Ice. Sibby maybe trying to read where that ultimate went. Oh, Deathwalker once more underneath the tier 2 tower. Hits him with the overhand damage there and gets out of range of the tier 2 tower. Stun back up for Ice. Land on the Sorega. And now this Loki eating about half of his HP. Gore, the right side of the map outside of the tier 2 tower feels like unsafe territory here for this Clay Soldiers team.
If beads had been bird for this Loki, Ice would have ulted there and gotten a solo kill. And honestly, Ice is still going back in over there on the blue buff. Like, he wants to fight, he wants to at least steal. And that's, I think, just impressive right now. This team is dominating what they can, but maybe he bit off more than he can chew.
Ice will use the ultimate to get away here. Up, down from Sibby. So finally, some respite from what's been happening over there. 1 and 3, one level behind Deathwalker. But it has been absolutely brutal. A tier 1 shield difference is what stands in lane now. So Deathwalker likely be able to take some sort of advantage, find some damage on this Sun Wukong. But Ice, look, you're feeling confident, Gore. I mean, obviously it's a slightly high-risk scenario, but it brought 3 members of the Clay Soldiers over to the right-hand side of the map, so you're able to maybe find some pressure elsewhere.
And when I look at the ult timers, I happen to notice that Agent, Sibby, and Sorega all have their ults down, right? Like, I mean, Ice pulled a lot over there just for a blue buff fight. Maybe, again, hubris, staying over there, trying to go for a blue buff when you know that they're going to be respawning and retaliating soon. Or just sacking yourself to make sure you get something useful out of there. They get a lot, and so I expect that Ice is still going to be able to have a lot of prowess out over here. He's still hanging out in the Clay Soldiers jungle, so he wants to continue being aggressive. It's just where, when, and how that he chooses to do so. Ult's not quite up for Ice, so I think he's going to relax here for a little bit before that CC immunities comes back online.
Well, the Greater Scorpion stands in the FG pit. You can already see where the accounting department are putting some of that pressure. Sometimes you see the left side of the map start to receive more focus, but when the right-hand side is gone this way for the accounting department, not all that surprising where the team is poising themselves here. Here comes Ice once more. Stun connects. Beads this time. The ultimate on out, but Ice has one as well. Sibby will dash away, but had to use beads and ult there as well. Ice only had to use, I suppose, blink, but used his blink there. Sorega, tons of damage, grasp of death on over. Clay Soldiers have brought the cavalry here as well, and Ferricrick rotates on in. 1 kill, 1 assist for the Clay Soldiers mid laner.
Big shot from Wolfie there. Unfortunately, not able to find the kill there. Wolfie, look, this is a pretty renowned Yanis. I believe it was Season 5, maybe Season 6. Have to go back and double-check myself, but he's got a good Yanis under his belt. I expect to see more ults like that connecting from far away. And it's just going to be the difference of late game having that damage behind him. The other thing I have to say in this instance, not only getting to see Wolfie do what he did at the end of that one again, which would have killed Sarah in, I think, pretty much any other circumstance. But I also am curious if Ice realizes he has, like, jungle camps he can farm and not just city, right? Like, you can choose more than the tier to try and find your experience and your gold. And I kind of want to see him, like, it's fun watching Finrir kind of pop off and have these big moments. It's also fun winning the game, so I think for accounting department here, if Ice specifically slows it down, does similar to what you're doing now, maybe focus on the mid lane as well. Try to just spread the love a little bit, because what was a lead was now a 1.5 level, maybe almost 2 levels down deficit in terms of experience. It's only, what, 240 sitting just around that point? It's pretty much all in the jungle right now. Everybody else is even, but that one deficit right there is actually being made up for because Deathwalker has a lead. So Ice, again, just slowly roll. Find some of that XP, then start going back in for the blood.
It's a good point. We've now kind of gotten too far in the opposite direction here for Ice. So maybe a deep breath. Gets this game back on track for the accounting department. Okeanos getting aggressive here. Kalas is in there as well. Kaspanify will work his way back beneath his tier 1 tower. Look at the reinforcements though from Clay Soldiers. Kaspanify's gone back in. It's a stun onto Kalas. Sarega's here as well. Agent on the backside of the fight is going to body block Kalas on down through space and time. Won't matter from Wolfie. And now Okeanos has to use the airstrike to escape the fight. Simple there for Clay Soldiers. Overextension from accounting department results in a death.
I mean, you get 2 steps too far, they're pretty easy to lock you down. Okeanos, though, showcasing again why Jingwei is still solid. Should have died there, but having your ult available, you're still able to get away. Jingwei, especially with the knockups that are on the side of Clay Soldiers, is going to be able to utilize that dash and that. I guess it's like a pseudo-passive, right? Like, it's not something you always think about, or passive is actually what's going on right now, flying halfway across the map whenever you spawn. Pretty solid, I would argue, a fourth of the way. I'll be honest with you. A fourth of the way across the map when you spawn. But pretty solid here for Season 8 when you consider how big the map is. A good passive to get you into it. But having that ability to dash off of someone else's knockup really is the saving grace for a lot of these ganks and a lot of the build, I guess, team composition for Clay Soldiers. Just making sure that, hey, if you get plucked by Agent or if he knocks you up or if Sibby comes over for a gank, you're going to be able to get out of there.
There's plenty of defense available for this Jingwei. I suppose maybe a quarter, as you put it, of the global presence as well. If Okeanos goes back to base, you can rejoin a fight elsewhere a little bit quicker. Let's see if Kalas can get his Hunter back in the kill column. Kaspanify, with the safety of this Chernobog, is going to work in and out of the wall as well. So he'll stay alive. 1 level lead for Kaspanify here over Okeanos. 1 level lead for Deathwalker over Sibby, I think, is the big story here. Just wide is Agent on the pluck from Wolfie. But after the start that Sibby had, 0-2, maybe 0-3, whatever it was bad. You've now been able to kind of mitigate a lot of those losses, find yourself about a level and a half behind, and hopefully get this tier in a spot where Clay Soldiers can compete with the presence of Deathwalker in the next big team fight.
They're looking for picks. I'm keeping my eyes on Ice right now just because it's so hard. First off, it's so hard to say Ice and not immediately say baby. Like, my mind just tried to do it there, and it was very, very difficult to fight the urge. But you got to keep your eyes on Ice trying to walk around and find fights as the spinner. I think the setup potential is always going to be there. The combination that you could have sending someone like Ice through a portal, then grabbing the ult up with something like Giannis, like, I think the combination play is going to be very important for accounting department. But also just choosing a target. So far it's been Sibby. Let's see if they can do anything over here on the right side.
Sarega half HP, Deathwalker full HP. It's the dash away from Sarega to keep the Loki alive now. Ice now taken down low as well. Look at Sibby pouring out the damage despite being a little bit behind here in this game. Ice will use the ultimate to escape, but won't even be able to do that. Now Clay Soldiers have picked up a kill and some map pressure here on the right-hand side. And what a whirlwind of a game Ice has had on Cloud 9 after the first couple of minutes, and now 2 and 3. It's effectively had the same impact that Sibby has had, but kind of flipped on the other way. And Deathwalker, look, you expect this big lead to mean that you can really trade into this tier, but I think the power of this god is really starting to show here, Gore, in the solo lane. Again, Sibby showing that despite a 1-3 or an 0-3 start to this game, he's still going to have the ability to impact the game.
Yeah, kind of the inverse story, right? Sibby still having the impact on the game, whereas that 2-0 start for Ice turned into 0-3 since then, has just been taking him out of the game at this point, right? It's so big with what tier can do in these rotations that he's not even having to do the, I want to say, typical tier thing. Like, he's not been in mid lane that often. It's like he's not even leaving his lane that far. He's fighting around his own blue buff. For Sibby, they just keep bringing the fight back to him. And honestly, it's paying off more and more as time continues going on, because he's not having to rotate very far. He gets to walk back, get a lot of farm. He gets his buffs guaranteed right afterward. Like, they just keep coming over and feeding him kills or assists, and that's pretty much fine for him. These are the most dangerous moments, but he's got beads, he's got his ult. Even though you know Ice is here and that they might go for a fight, you're not really stressed. At this point, I expect him to be able to outlive the ganks, and that's another reason I'd really like Ice to start focusing on literally any other part of the map. I think he's just going to find more utility if he is in mid, if he's over there in duo. I mean, right now, Caspanify's just been able to sit back and farm. Same thing can be said for Okeanos.
And Sorega tries to change that. Will force the ultimate out of Okeanos, but we've talked about the Jingwei passive. That'll bring the accounting department ADC back into the fray a little bit quicker. Oracle's dropped on in for Clay Soldiers. Pings ringing down over the Gold Fury. Clay Soldiers, they want this one. Sibby starts to make his way over from solo lane as well. Wolfie's going to work on in through space and time, flies in, no damage, and Clay Soldiers will take the Gold Fury away. What a call, realizing accounting department had to go back to base. The Gold Fury started and quickly finished off. Now, how about the fight afterwards? Grasp of Death, that collects on the Kalas, half HP now. On the Ardio, big tail whip from Agent, locks down some good CC. Wolfie, Aegis, Farrakrick through the portal, but Caspanify gets the damage done on the end of it. Ice, double kill, all the cleave damage there. Could be looking at 3. Okeanos pulls one for the accounting department as well. Gorit's a spitting image of game number 1. This accounting department team consistently finding kills around the Gold Fury. It's a triple kill for Ice. Could be looking for a quad. Sorega will shut down any dream of that, and Deathwalker, the lone player alive on the map.
He gets the job done, though, right? Kills off literally everyone else. Look, anything you want to do, this is a rare moment for a lot of players to just be the last one standing, the only one able to do anything. I think you go back. Wolfie maybe wants to go back, get his protractor, his compass out, try to figure out that angle for the through time and space. But the engage afterward for accounting department is really the key story there. Ultimately, you end up maybe 20 gold behind. Like, it's fluctuating from wave to wave. It might as well be even at this point, considering what's going on. And that's big for accounting department right after a Gold Fury gets taken, especially after they'd lost a lot of those fights just prior. So being able to equalize things out, very similar to last game, I'm going to say a fight around the Gold Fury, really making sure things are different for them, except this time instead of getting the Gold Fury and running away with the fight, they just neutralize all win states of the game and get it right back to ground zero. All 6 towers are still standing for both teams. Nobody has a lead. I mean, you're just sitting back 16 minutes into this, happy with where you are, although I'd say there's a clear target for accounting department, and that is that if you kill Ice, I'm not seeing a whole lot of performance from the others. That is where things will need to change. I think really it's just due to the fact that Ice got a triple kill. There's not much you can do in the scenario when your jungler's popping off. But if Wolfie and Okeanos are able to get more in these fights and have a bigger impact, it diversifies the threats for accounting department and makes it more difficult for Clay Soldiers to choose an individual person to bully.
Yeah, it's got to be a dream then turnaround for Ice. I mean, he was 2 levels behind Sorega, but a triple kill pulls him just a little bit ahead. Greater Scorpion in the FG pit finally taken down, so the Fire Giant will be here shortly. Ice uses the Ragnarok to walk away from some of the engage. Looked for a re-engage onto Sibby, but the dash away will keep the tier alive as well. 3 ultimates used here for accounting department, only the one from Clay Soldiers, a net win. Maybe we're standing neutral if you start to look at some of those ultimates. Then you wonder, Gore, if maybe the Clay Soldiers start to try to force a fight here in the next couple of minutes, given the ultimates.
It's all on how they engage. And again, if you kill Ice, that seems to be where the rest of the team is. You come in, you get 1. Granted, I see 3 ults down in order to make sure that this goes the way they want it to. Although Caspanify, I should say, maybe using his just for re-engage. This is really big moments. You've got 30 seconds without Ice. This is your time to dictate the pace of the game if you're Clay Soldiers.
And Deathwalker now a 2-level lead over Sibby. Okeanos lurking over to the left. Sorega, Farrakrick, Agent. Everyone's here from Clay Soldiers. You got to be careful. Except Caspanify, who doesn't have his ultimate ready to go just yet. Pyromancer taken down by Clay Soldiers. Agent, though, locked in. Body blocks from Kalas is going to force the pluck defensively from Agent here. How far do you want to chase this, though? If you're the accounting department, Grasp of Death used by Farrakrick now, you've got to call that a win, I think. If you're the accounting department, you force the support on back. But look at Caspanify. The split push potential is absolutely rearing its head here. Jingwei had to be there in that fight. Caspanify did not, and it's a tier 1 tower taken down on the left.
And the biggest thing is Caspanify's ult's going to come back up, right? If there weren't this big rotation over, the Yanis and the Fenrir coming over to make sure that doesn't continue, you get a tier 2, and if a fight breaks out over in the Fire Giant pit because, quote-unquote, you're not there, you press 4 and you're there all of a sudden, right? You're just in the fight. That's the thing that I think they're going to have trouble with on accounting department. Now, as powerful as that sounds, There's a reason Chernobog wasn't the most picked last year. There's a reason that he wasn't the god we talked about all the time, and it's that there are ways to beat that. Global rotations on a map like this, especially as wide as it is, much bigger than the Season 7 map, it does mean that it's a little more potent than what we had last year, but it's not the end-all be-all. A 4v5 is not necessarily over just because they have a one-man advantage, and that's where I think Okeanos is going to be able to play around with where his rotations are, or realistically any member of accounting department. And if anything, you want Wolfie to be the one that's super far away from the team, because he's the one that can, in fact, close that gap the best using that ult, and still find damage from it if he aims it properly.
Right. Yeah, if Okeanos can find the space to operate in these fights, the way his build looks right now, he's going to be melting down a lot of that damage. Oboe, Kin Size, Devourer's Gauntlet as well. I mean, that's a sort of traditional, not only Hunter build, but Jing Wei, that's pretty much expected in that department. Clay Soldier started up the Gold Fury, finished it off a few moments ago. Now the Primal Fury spawns half HP on the objective. Accounting department starting to collapse in. Ice does not have his ultimate, and he's not in the fight as well. Anyway, Kalas gets plucked right back through. Agent trades half of his HP for half of Kalas's. Okeanos has to airstrike away, but look at Sibby chasing down the Hunter on the right-hand side of the fight. Wolfie's there to try to peel. The carries are being locked down by the tiers here. That means Clay Soldiers can storm through the rest of this fight. Ice has to use the portal on defensively. Sibby is going to try to do the last bit of damage here, but another good portal from Wolfie will keep his jungler alive.
Yeah, a nice little portal just to make sure you can get away there. Unfortunately, this does mean, should be, the Primal Fury. Deathwalker, Okeanos, Wolfie, they're still hanging around, Dave. Like, even without Ice, even without Kalas, they want to fight.
Maybe a steal, but it is not to be. Clay Soldiers will get the Primal Fury locked in once more. Kalas is the only one who dies in that chaotic fight there. And Gore, Sibby, I mean, talk about a game, and we've mentioned it so many times about how brutal this game started off for this tier. He effectively kept Wolfie and Okeanos out of that fight. He chased Okeanos through the ultimate there, forced Wolfie back to try to peel for his own ADC. And then the rest of the Clay Soldiers kind of had free reign without all the damage of accounting department in there. The city has had a big turnaround here in this game.
I mean, this, yeah, has been huge considering, like you said, he was kind of camped, sat down on. Tyr is one of those characters and gods that, I mean, good luck keeping him down. Like, it's one of those things, if you get that third kill, maybe if he's 3 to 4 levels down, we're having a different conversation. But Sibby never hit that point, and I think that's, again, maybe what Ice wanted to do was shut this down so it wouldn't have an impact. But Tyr just feels like one of those gods that's always going to be a thorn in your side, no matter how long and how hard you try to keep him down. He's just going to come back. His ability to disrupt you is still there. It's just his survivability that comes into question for it. And Sibby is absolutely happy right now. Doesn't have anything to worry about. Is tanky enough that he can go in, get a ton of knockups, a ton of disruptions, still survive with his own heal, and walk out to tell the tale. I mean, it's going to be perfect for him. And I think for accounting department, that's where, as you had highlighted, that Oboe, the Kin Size there for Okeanos, you're trying to kill someone like Sibby. Same thing, Caspanify now with the Ichabal and the Kin Size, potentially going for an Executioner here as well. Your goal is to kill Deathwalker, to kill Kalas, but no one, at least in my mind, not Ice should be trying to lock him down unless you're going for the ult to make sure you hold him in place for someone like Okeanos. I think those ults are going to need to be saved for someone like Ferricrik, someone like Caspanify, Saraga. Just get rid of these targets that are just absolutely decimating Ice's health bar, and then you can start turning onto somebody else in one of these tanks.
Yeah, I think you got to give some shouts, Gord, for your point there to Saraga. 4-1-5 on the Loki. Has looked good for the Clay Soldier squad here this game. Ferricrik as well. 3-1-6 on this Persephone. Big burst damage now built in to that to the item build for Ferricrik. This Persephone, you wondered where she would start to get prioritized, and you know, it's been kind of lower half of a lot of these drafts, but still does a lot of what she used to do, Goran. In the right hands, she can make a big difference in these fights.
Yeah, her ult's still nuts, right? Like, at the end of the day, you could take away a lot of things from her, and her ult is still insanely solid. It's one of those things that maybe she's not going to be the quote-unquote end-all, be-all of mages throughout the year like we saw last year, but honestly, I still expect her, starting 8 days from now, yeah, the 23rd, that's probably when we're going to start seeing the priority shift. The big issue is, much like we've been seeing here in the SCC, there's so many good gods to ban and so many good gods to pick that you actually are juggling 3, 4, 5, 6 different mid laners, right? You're juggling 7 different junglers, 9 different solo laners, something ridiculous like that, right? Just trying to figure out who is going to be the best, who do I want to play this game, what's going to counter them a little bit better, all of that fun stuff. But then at the end of the day, someone who gets to live a little bit after their passive procs, plus they get their ult, that is such a huge team fight changer if you're able to connect it, which so far Ferricrick has been pretty solid on. I think Persephone's still going to be incredibly disruptive throughout the year, and like you said, the right hands are going to make everyone remember that.
Everyone's starting to reach level 20 here, which means some of those starter items are going to be finished off here shortly. Ferricrick about a quarter of his health bar missing. Aegis used through space and time, no good from Wolfie here. Actually, the Honest now in a bit of an awkward spot. Ferricrick dashes away from the fight. Sorega in the back line, really in the front line, I suppose, grabs a kill onto Ice. And now yet again, this Fenrir has leapt into a fight core and just hasn't quite had the backup that Ice is needed.
Yeah, I feel like for Ice, what we have to do is start talking about how things are definitely going poorly for him. Because last time we did that, he got a triple kill and turned the game back around. So I actually do think like Ice falling down this early is just disruptive to them. They're not getting anything done because they're losing their jungler. That's a lot of their pressure and their engage for accounting department. And once that happens, I mean, I'm not expecting a lot out of Collis here on Ardio. It's so hit or miss right now. Looks to be doing well to try and set up, but I don't know how this fight's going to go.
Big damage underneath the tier 2 tower. It's Deathwalker who picks up the first kill for the accounting department, but Sorega wants to re-engage. Caspanify is free casted from the backline. Ferricrick has as well, full HP, nearly on both of the Clay Soldiers carries. So it's Agent who goes down in exchange for Deathwalker there. I suppose, Gore, if you're the accounting department and your goal was to save the tier 2 tower, you've at least bought some time.
You do, but you lose Deathwalker in like this big staggered out fight. Agent is going to respawn a little bit faster there, level 16 versus the level 20 for the solo laner on the side of accounting department. So you've got a lot of time to make up that you are not going to have one of your primary engages. And I'm actually happy to see it. I was just kind of just talking about the fact that I didn't know that Collis was really doing much to set things up, and now we're starting to see it be more proactive, and they might be able to find some kills here.
Oh my god, Wolfie just disappeared. It's Caspanify who grabs the double. Could be another on the menu, and it's another triple kill in this game, and it's Clay Soldiers, the ADC that gets it done. Deicide now, 26 minutes in for the Clay Soldiers, and Gormizer, Deathwalker's the only one alive. You got about 30 seconds on Collis, 40 on the rest. Do they have the legs to get this game ended?
I mean, they're definitely going to be able to get a tower. They should be able to get a Phoenix. That's the question of the Titan. Look, there's 3 towers still standing. That's going to be a pretty tanky Titan, trying to burn down in 30 seconds. Possible, but maybe not the easiest thing in the world. I think they're going to go for it, Dave. It all depends on Deathwalker and the damage he can do. If he can take out just one of these carries, that's enough.
Whoa, Deathwalker, Somersault Cloud is down, and Keeley gets a good silence, but Clay Soldiers, they don't care. They walk in, they fail the Titan, and accounting department fall in game number 2, Gore. We are headed on to another game 3 here today. We've just been blessed with great smite here today. Apparently, Clay Soldiers, a little uneasy in a few of those fights, but ultimately their draft is able to get it done.
I mean, look, you go back to the beginning of this game, Ice puts a lot of focus. Seems to be the talk of the town for the game. After that triple kill, I thought for sure that was going to be where things really got big. But instead it was the other side. Watching this Loki kind of grow from, is he going to be able to do anything, to, what, 7-1 and 8 there at the very end? Like, absolutely dominated the jungle and dominated the game, was able to get things done that the other team just didn't have.
Yeah, feels good there. Absolutely for Clay Soldiers to be able to even up this set, especially after a tough week number 1 here in the EU SCC. That's all the breaking down we're going to do here for game number 2. We'll take a quick break, and the desk will take you through the rest.
Welcome back to the Smite Challenger Circuit in EU. My name is Finch. This is Mifflin. We're right in the middle of an excellent set between the Clay Soldiers and Accounting Department and Miff. I kind of thought Accounting Department had the strat to start this game off, right? It was constant pressure from Ice over in solo, and my man Sibby couldn't tell which way was up for the most part of it. But for some reason, they lost all that pressure. Miff, what did you see that kind of helped out in the mid game to get Clay Soldiers back into this, and is the reason they turned it around?
Look, Saragazek popping off for his team, probably in large part of that. My man pops off on this Loki. I think it was top damaging him at the end of the game, which is interesting because he really does, in the past at least, struggle to figure out when he wants to engage these fights. But on Loki, my man was just constantly in every single step of the way, always looking for the aggression. But if I'm telling the whole truth, Finch, I think it comes down to just draft and diff. I think Accounting Department just didn't really have a cohesive lineup here.
Yeah, I don't know if I loved all these picks, right, from them. You don't see a whole lot of Jingwei or RDO nowadays, and maybe that left some openings. But, I mean, I think you made a good point with Saragazek, right? I mean, this was a big transformation for him. This is a guy that I've seen struggle to know when his moments are on gods where it's way easier, you know, where you get to just drop right on down in the middle of the team fight, like when you want to. And he found his stride here. I was very surprised, if I'm being entirely honest, and I had to put some respect in my man's name. But the whole team played well here for Clay Soldiers, kind of bouncing back from a nice start from Accounting Department, built on solo pressure and getting the entire team involved. I mean, that's about as easy of a multi-kill as you're going to see for a Hunter. They lined up for my man just on the back of great setup.
Yeah, because Spanify certainly benefiting from that immense front line of Sibby and Agent just setting up for him. Saragazek as well, kind of distracting Accounting Department a little bit in these fights. He'd go in, pick up his kill, and then stealth and run in circles for about 20 seconds while the rest of Accounting Department just tried to find him. As far as I'm concerned, I think we're going to expect to see a very different Game 3 from both teams. I don't think Clay Soldier is going to be allowed to have that Loki again. Accounting Department likely going to toss a respect ban his way. And I think Accounting Department might as well just scrap this entire draft and start over from scratch.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to do, though. They have banned Yamoja, Athena, and Tiamat at the beginning of every ban phase, right? Which one of those are they going to happily say goodbye to in exchange for this Loki? One thing that helps with them is that for some reason, they're on the other side, Clay Soldiers have waited until the bottom side of the big ban phase to get their jungler almost every single time, so maybe they can afford to wait, but I think these adjustments are going to cost something here for the Accounting Department. I'm excited to see how they make those adjustments, but I'm just impressed with Clay Soldiers, man. The Game 1 was tough, and finding a way to bounce back to force a Game 3 here is really impressive. This is a team that I don't think you can overlook.
No, yeah, they are certainly looking very good, especially in this recent weeks. They've been really cleaning up their early game. Their team fights have been getting a lot better, and they've been playing around these neutral objectives a lot more confidently. When they start up a gold tree, they're willing to finish it. They know when one person peels off of it, that's time to team fight. That's really what we saw them struggle with in the qualifying phase, and they've really cleaned it up as the weeks have dragged on.
Well, Miff, let's get the answer to your burning questions as we move into the picks and bans now for their game number 3, the final game of this set. And then there's still even more action to come after that. Cannot wait for the SCC day to continue rounding on out. So Clay Soldiers in the number 1 pick position, and kind of what my point of attention was these first 3 bans from Accounting Department that have been unmoving. But Miff, there's the emoji ban, so is there suddenly room for this Loki ban just magically all of a sudden?
Yeah, if I'm Accounting Department, I'm like, sick, a bailout. Let me just toss a ban Loki's way for free. Tsukiyomi in the first line. Look, I said it. Game 3 is going to be completely different. And you know what, Finch? At the end of the day, I think that even if Yamoja made her way through picks and bans, Clay Soldiers have taken Chernobog in the first slot every single time, despite Set being available and Apollo being available. But Clay Soldiers instead ban out the Chernobogs from themselves. Yeah, Game 3 is going to be wildly different.
Yeah, you had the read or announced that for Daidi ban from Accounting Department. Suddenly, a complete shift in priorities from both teams, right? Loki getting banned by Clay Soldiers. It feels almost flipped, doesn't it? I mean, it's crazy what we're seeing here at this point from these teams because this is clearly what's been working for Clay Soldiers, but they're trying to move away from it. They know these picks can work, respectfully taking that away from Account Department. Thank goodness, at the very least, Tiamat does get banned, but now Athena is out there, all of those mages and assassins too. This is a very scary 10 picks we're about to see because so much is still available because now they're banning in the set instead of just in the meta, and it's scaring me for what's coming up next.
And now Alquan getting picked up in that first slot overall. A god who I think is potentially up there with Set in best in slot jungle right now. With the rings as they are, the itemization changes for jungle. You can go for Ratatouille very early on. Alquan doesn't really need to be that 25-minute monster that he used to. My man's up and ready, level 12 at the 10-minute mark. Like, he's good to go. And that execute is so hard to deal with. I'm surprised that we're just now seeing him get picked up in the EU SCC. And the accounting department on the other end, blasting back with some pretty strong picks of their own. Sun Wukong and Athena, that's a tanky, very robust front line.
Yeah, the accounting department have decided they're just going to get this Wukong for Deathwalker. That's just the name of the game here at this point, is that's the price. We're getting that for him, we're securing it. But obviously getting the Athena alongside it is a great pick for them. The taunt now, the confound, so much stronger with that added damage and helping out with the clear, so you can put her solo or into the jungle pretty reliably. But now Guan Yu on the other side, now suddenly getting valued. A plenty strong solo pick in and of its own right. It's hard to say just with these first three picks, but both these teams, I think, coming out with something they're going to be happy with already.
Yeah, these drafts are looking incredibly strong from both squads so far. Clay Soldiers have essentially put a timer on the game. Once we get to the late game, we're going to be able to utilize the healing from Guan Yu, as well as the fact that we're just going to have a late game Ao Kwang. Heimdall should be able to play safe in his own lane, which means that should make up for the lack of pressure from Ao Kwang in the early. So I really like what Clay Soldiers have got for themselves here, whereas on the other side, accounting department are just a strong composition. Confound into Retribution from Nemesis should shred just about anyone, even Cavalry Charge shouldn't be enough to get you out of that situation. We saw how that lined up in game one of this set, and Sun Wukong as well as follow-up. Just lockdown and backline disruption should be a huge asset to his team.
I'm thinking so, but I'm a little worried. Just the accounting department have kind of given up some of their flexibility with this draft. You lock in Wukong, almost certainly solo, and Nemesis, which almost certainly jungle. Feels like you're kind of just broadcasting everyone it is going to be an Athena support. Obviously still room for flexibility, but I mean, I'd lean pretty heavily towards that assignment of roles for these guys, and maybe you lose a little bit of that, you know, that flexibility you've had in this draft otherwise.
But we do have a slight history of Kalas going to that Sun Wukong support, so there is still the potential for the flex there. I think that he certainly could be a slight question mark for Clay Soldiers, but I think your read is absolutely correct. If I had to guess where these individual picks are going, I think you nailed it properly here. Clay Soldiers running out the bands with Apollo and Scylla, accounting department tossing it towards Ares and Sobek. So what's left on the table? Persephone worked out pretty well for the Clay Soldiers. Accounting department going to take it for themselves.
Yeah, and then maybe an Amir is the response. We've seen the Clay Soldiers like this pick. Chiron being selected. This is something that I've heard some rumblings about being maybe a bit of a sleeper pick, and Chiron having some bully potential in lane and then being great once he's able to get involved in these team fights a little bit more too. So we'll see how he works, but I'm most interested in this support role, and if it is indeed going to be them coming back towards this tried and true Amir pick, or if maybe we'll see something a little bit different coming out from one of these teams. Cabrakan going to Clay Soldiers, which has mostly been something that Colin has been playing. This adds some much needed aggression to this Clay Soldiers draft. I like this.
Yeah, it's really strong, and now they've got the lockdown potential. Athena and Nemesis both going to really struggle dealing with these walls from Cabrakan, and anyone who gets locked down for any period of time, I don't care if it's the tankiest guy on your team or the squishiest, is going to immediately get shredded by Ao Kwang, by the defense shred from Talu Assault, from double hunters staring you down. Clay Soldiers have single target damage in spades, but I'm worried about their capacity to play from behind, play on defense. If they fall behind at any point, their base defense is incredibly weak because they really do lack AoE damage.
Yeah, they're going to need for that first pick they're looking for to work so they can waterfall that into this execute, into being able to get to the back line more efficiently, or they could be in trouble. Meanwhile, accounting department goes back to this Jingwei. Jingwei's the kind of pick that I cannot get mad at you for. Crit's great on her. She's safe. She's going to work. But it just doesn't feel like she quite has the pressure some of these other ADCs can have when dual lane pressure is suddenly so good. There's so much farm over there on the left side of the map. Are you really okay with sitting back on a Jingwei?
Not me, personally. I'll be locking in Uller and on her all the time, right? You gotta jump in, especially considering in Season 8, with the map being as large as it is, it makes it that much harder for junglers to be willing to make the rotation over into the dual lane. It's a huge value trade-off. If I go over there and I don't get a kill, I just missed out on clearing 4, maybe 5 camps in my own jungle. Now that farm is kind of stagnating a little bit, so it gives these ADC players, these hunters, the opportunity to play a little bit more aggressively, to enforce that ADC diff that we hear about so often.
We'll see, though. Maybe this Jingwei will be aggressive, or maybe she'll sit back. This critical game number 3, who better to give it to than Dolson and Gore?
God, Finch just 2 for 2 on compliments here today. It is Dolson and Gore, still Doug, with us for game number 3, our 6th game of the day. Still one more set after this one, by the way, so stick around. After the thrilling conclusion of Accounting Department versus Clay Soldiers, Gore, Accounting Department go back to a double hunter composition here. Wolfie on the Chiron and Okeanos over on the Heimdall. Let's start there in the mid lane then. What do we think about the Chiron pickup there for Wolfie?
Look, when it comes down to hunter mids, my tier list personally goes on her, probably then Chiron, Neath, things like that, right? On her just tends to run mid lane really well, although he runs dual lane really well as well. I'm actually kind of surprised we're not seeing a whole ton of him, considering I've heard a lot and seen him a lot in like ranked games and things like that. I think he is absolutely someone who is worth noting for these players. But Wolfie playing this Chiron, I think he fits into that mid lane pretty well. It is a little interesting though, because he falls into a really weird dynamic right now when you're looking at mid laners like Scylla, who's kind of been dominating, like Yanis, who's dominating. Wolfie doesn't, or Chiron I should say, doesn't necessarily scream burst damage to me, and he doesn't really do the hunter thing better than other hunters, right? He falls into this weird middle ground, I would say, for the hunters, where I think he's going to be really solid.
Right.
He's going to be solid at confirming kills, right? That masterful shot, as well as his ult, really good at confirming damage from long range. He's got a small heal in his kit. He's going to be able to help out his team, and he's just safe all around. But it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic he has with someone like Persephone on the other side, who I think should be able to control the mid lane. Maybe not at the very beginning, might take a little while for Farrakrick to catch up, but once Farrakrick gets into that zone, I expect Persephone to take charge.
Deathwalker survive here, shredding down some of the damage. One more auto from range. Sibby, of course he'll get that one done. Gore, I was just about to talk about this. A warding sigil picked up first for Deathwalker there, so maybe hoping some of the damage dampening was going to help him out there. I suppose it kept Deathwalker alive just a little bit longer, but Sibby ends up with first blood there underneath the tier 1 tower.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, not a starting item that I have gotten, or at least seen as often, I should say, as literally any of the others. I mean, you take any other starter item in this lobby, and it's something that you've seen a little bit earlier on. But gaining that dampening, something that's going to be able to come through, you decrease your damage taken, right? So like you said, Warding Sigil maybe helping him out in these fights a little bit more often, in these one-on-ones, and honestly, you would think for Deathwalker that means he survives in moments like that, but didn't quite walk away for it. It is based on the abilities getting hit by. So Sibby is a perfect target for this. Very, very ability heavy is Wukong, at least in these boxing matches. But I don't know that that's going to do too much, especially against the Bluestone, that extra damage that we're going to see Sibby.
Oh, it just hurts so bad. Bluestone Wukong hurts so bad, in the same way that Agent will hurt. With a couple taunts here. Agent down to about half, but Okeanos is as well. Kalas somewhat low over there in the duo lane. And so it is the Athena support. We figured it would be. The desk did a good job of kind of breaking that one down. Of course, with the Nemesis in the jungle, so Wukong locked in for solo is always going to be support Athena here for Agent. Gore, do you still think, you know, this is a similar conversation maybe to what we had last year with Cthulhu? We saw him in support for a little while, saw Cthulhu in the solo lane there for a little while. We had this big debate, where does he belong, things like that. Do you think Agent can have that same impact on Athena out of the support while being a little bit slower on some of that itemization?
Yes, I think it's one of those things. Athena, so Cthulhu lead heavy, and I think his abilities really required him to be more of a solo laner. He was more bruisery. He wanted to fight. Athena is, I mean, right there, taunt. That's 90% of the reason you're picking her, if I'm honest with you. I mean, the slow on the dash is really solid as well, because you're getting a little bit of both here. I just think Agent, and personally, I love Athena. I've got her diamond from just support play.
Agent will have the taunt shortly. And Kalas goes down underneath his own tower, but Ice is here. Blink on through. Agent will use the ultimate. He will not get away, though. Ice returning the kill nearly from Agent there, getting out alive. What a play. Okeanos bought enough time there with some body blocks and the knockbacks from the Horn to keep Kalas alive just a little bit longer. I think that opens up the door to Ice to rotate on in. And so, Gore, last time we wondered where a lot of that magical power would come from when Accounting Department played this double hunter comp. You've got plenty of it here. Now that you've got the Zhao Kuang and the Kabrakan, seems like a much more well-rounded comp.
Yeah, going to be able to do a little bit more than what we had earlier on, but still, again, very close range for all of that damage. You have the Execute available, which is going to be solid against people like Agent, Sibby, and Agent maybe doubly so because that mitigation whenever Agent uses his ult on a low target, it's going to make it a lot easier. Don't care about mitigation if you just straight up kill them, right? And that's exactly where I think Ice is going to be able to find it. Also good for knockups like that.
Sorega has to use the double dash here. It's a 3 versus 1, making a 3 versus 2 immediately into the stun. But Agent will double taunt Counting Department on away as well. Sibby, Somersault Cloud. Does he have the range to get some extra damage on the back? And Grasp of Death from Farrakrick out of the mid. Kalas will walk away from this one somehow.
Wow.
Nobody dies. Kalas so low. Everyone except the Hunters getting involved there. And it was the cleanse indeed. Well sought out there by Doug. Wolfie helping keep Kalas alive there under the Grasp of Death.
I mean, looking at all of this, that cleanse, again, that's something that I think at non-high level play, honestly non-competitive play, someone playing Chiron, they're not going to help you, man. Like maybe they do hit it, but it's not going to be anywhere near what you see here. Chiron is one of those characters that, again, in the right hands, I think we're using that term a lot, but I feel like it's proper because how many people are going to be able to hit that cleanse and do it appropriately? That's not necessarily the hardest thing in the world to do, but because of the timing on that ability, it is difficult to make sure it goes off in the right moment. So Wolfie being able to showcase that is beautiful. Also leveling it up, so it's going to be able to help him clear some of these waves as well. A little bit of damage in these team fights. It's fun to watch as time goes forward. I'm just kind of flabbergasted that we had 8 ults dropped, a 4v4 over there on the right-hand side of the map, and literally no one died. My brain's still kind of trying to catch up onto that. Because there's so much good lockdown, so many good plays and turnarounds in that from both sides, that it makes sense that there's 2 outcomes. Either everyone dies or no one does. So they went with the latter to make sure that things were going to still keep up the spice here. 7 minutes in, it's only 3 kills, and honestly, this is where the pressure comes through. Accounting Department, a little bit on the line. They win this one, and they're still sitting up there at that 2-0. Otherwise, we're going to end up seeing Pandemonium take over the standings.
That's right.
If they end up losing this one, which again, after week 2, maybe not the end-all, be-all, still something worth noting.
Something to look at here. Deathwalker with his last bit of mana. We'll use the cavalry charge. He'll stay alive. It's been a bully up there in the solo lane. This Bluestone Sun Wukong has been. Like what I've seen out of Wolfie, though, obviously the great play on the Chiron, help it cleanse the rest of his team. That's going to be interesting to follow, Gore, throughout the rest of this game, as well as now the pressure that's being put over on the right-hand side. Sorega's here. Kalas, Wolfie, Ice in on the blue buff as well. Looks like Sibby will be able to escape alive. It's the clap onto Ice, though. Will Sorega drop the ultimate? He'll choose not to. Kalas just lurking close by as well. You kind of get these tense moments where you think a fight's about to break out, but it's going to be the blue buff invaded and then backing away here for the Clay Soldiers. Instead, Accounting Department looking to engage over onto Agent. Agent will drop down some of the damage. Can't taunt Kalas through his own wall there. Execute for Ice, and finally, one of these jungle fights results in a kill.
Needed that, too, to be able to stay alive. Otherwise, I think that's going to end up resulting in maybe Clay Soldiers finding some turnaround. Good taunt from Agent. I think that's just unfortunate. Kalas, though, showcasing why this Kabrakan has been such a big pick. That ability, very similar to Mir, right? You just throw up a wall all of a sudden in the middle of the jungle, and what do? How do I get out of here? Like, yes, you can auto it down, but geez, that's just not necessarily going to be easy for you to get all the way through there. And right now we're entering that lull where there's a lot of curiosities I have throughout this game, right? When are Caspanify, Okeanos going to join this? Both of them. Neither of the global ultimates hunters that we've been talking about all day over there. So when do they start rotating into these fights? What impact are they going to make? I'm really watching Deathwalker because Deathwalker is not having an easy game. Just lost his tier 1 tower here. Last game, 16 minutes in, we still had all 12 towers still standing. Now that one going down with Deathwalker having a 2-level deficit. I really have to look at what he's going to be doing. And my eye goes to, is it Infused Sigil or is it Sigil of the Old Guard, right? Like, where is this upgrade going? And I really want him to hit level 20 because I really want to know what he had in mind with this starter. Right now, it doesn't look like Clay Soldiers want him to get there. They're looking for blood anywhere they can find it. A lot of focus on this right-hand map, and with that blue buff spawning, might just be able to go bully it out. Maybe find themselves a kill in the process if Deathwalker doesn't give it up.
Well, there's a cavalry charge for Deathwalker. It's going to be a successful blue buff invade this time from the Clay Soldiers. Deathwalker was able to pick up his previous blue buff, but this time Clay Soldiers bring the reinforcements. Deathwalker 2 levels down, and then in a 1v3. Won't loom there, and then you start to wonder where the pressure then returns for the accounting department. There wasn't much of a return answer there in that moment. Clay Soldiers just bring enough to the right-hand side, and the accounting department not there yet to respond in kind. And so now the rotations might start here. Sibi's starting to put pressure out by this tier 2 tower. That means he's going to invade the jungle, strip away these camps. That's going to put Ice a little bit further behind, and the Sun Wukong Core is in a position to start to wreak some havoc and rotating into fights.
Ooh, missed taunt there. Things like that are really a good way for accounting department to continue flourishing right now. I honestly think like Ice just gets better with time over here. Kalas gets better with time. Same thing for the Guan Yu. And once Okeanos gets into these fights, it's going to be a little more difficult. Having 2 hunters on your side, it's going to help him out in the late game.
Well, it's a cleanse once more, but you can only cleanse one of the lockdowns against Kalas, and Kalas takes a death there at the hands of Ferricrick. So 2 ultimates used. Clay Soldiers will use the Nem and the Persephone ultimate. Wolfie used his ult just a few moments ago. Deathwalker will have to cavalry charge his way out as well. It's just been tough sledding for this Guan Yu. Look at this, still more skirmishing. Wolfie putting some good damage into Ferricrick here. Ice has joined the fray as well. Wolfie with an easy kill there, but it's the passive that Agent has ulted on into, and then Ice gets the execute kill over the wall. Interesting plays there, and accounting department Gore able to at least pick up 2, but now it's Caspanify who will turn back 1. Whoa!
And that is going to be a nice pickup. Double kills all around. Everybody gets 1, at least at this point. 4-1-1 Ice. It's taken down there by 202 Caspanify. Good pickups, I think, at the tail end of that. Still, overall, I would argue favoring, actually, Clay Soldiers. They're the ones who have the gold lead as of right now. And if they go even, it's even better for them as time continues. But again, I think a lot of this will start to transition downward, trend downward for them if they let the accounting department catch up to them here. So they have to make sure they maintain this lead, maintain this amount of control, and again, at the minimum, go even in these team fights to make sure things continue in their way. The oppression they've had over there, knocking down everything Deathwalker has tried to build with his bare hands, that has really led them to a massive lead over here. I think that's where most of it is, 3 levels just in that lane. 1 level everywhere else, essentially, or and the sprinkling of everywhere else. But it's this constant harassment on the blue buff, that tower being down, the kills over there. It's been very consistent form of farm for Clay Soldiers. I'm wondering how that's going to work when they transition to fights over here on the left side of the map, especially now we're starting to see these pings onto the Fury side Scorpion. Who's going to get that first? It looks like Clay Soldiers won it.
As of right now, as we stand at this moment, there's 781 gold in hand. Deathwalker is a full item behind of Sibi, 2 full items, or 2 full levels, excuse me, behind there as well. And so now we're starting to see some of that rotation. Deathwalker will get the right-hand side pushed on in. Gold Fury slowly starts to tick up towards spawning. This is a good, I think, bit of pressure here from Clay Soldiers. If you're able to find a pick or even a team fight that goes in your favor just before the Gold Fury spawns, you're making life easier on that first big objective. But privy to it, the accounting department will back themselves away. These are the moments where Deathwalker, right, can start to close that gap just a little bit. You're free farming. Sibi is elsewhere. He's helping lock down the tier 1 tower in mid. But look at this duel here. 2 hunters going toe-to-toe. Caspanify will eat the ultimate, but there's a brawl in the mid lane as well. Big kills for the accounting department. 1 pulled back by Sibi. Deathwalker has joined the fray as well. It's Ferricrick being ulted down in the back line, and the Persephone can't do anything about it. Aegis used, but a time's out, and it's a double kill from Ice. All of this just to set up for the Ao Kuang. Somersault Cloud will keep Sibi alive for a little bit longer, but will it save his life entirely? The blink says yes.
Look, Ao Kuang is not going to be the end-all, be-all of this game, but it's starting to feel a little bit like it. And when you look at this composition, I feel like Ao Kuang is surrounded by a lot of protection here, right? Like the cleanse from Wolfie, a lot of the healing that can come from Wolfie, the healing from Deathwalker, the proc shred and the target protection from Deathwalker. Like, it just feels like Ice is the president here. He's the one who's got to get in and make sure he gets out of there. The accounting department are playing that part pretty well. 6-1-2. Also means if you kill him early on, that means there's not a lot for accounting department to fall back on. Okeanos might be a good backup here in this Heimdall the later the game goes, but still needs a couple of items before he's really hitting the way that we've seen Heimdall hit in the past. But if Ice continues this, not only does he have that level lead in the jungle, I think he can start pulling away, hit that late game stride. That's really scary for Clay Soldiers to have to deal with. They're still at a deficit right now. They want that Gold Fury more than anything because it'll even out the gold. But with Ice doing what he's doing right now, it's just finding kills, right? If you can counteract what Agent's trying to set up, counteract Saraga and their setup, there's not much that Clay Soldiers are going to be able to do to survive these fights. That execute's really coming in handy.
Both the Soul Laners haven't been able to go back and buy just yet. It is a 2k or so gold differential here. Ice doing plenty of damage to Sibby despite a 2-level differential there. Uh-oh, over the wall, Saraga! Blink and you missed it. Saraga is there. Sets up for the kill onto Ice. Ice thought he had one, but instead it's just a bit of a bait and switch there. And that's tough. Now Ice, the most important player on the accounting department, off the map for just a little bit here. So much of that gold lead, though, feels like it's sitting in the back pocket of Deathwalker, who's fallen at the moment. Again, it's at the moment. Deathwalker will be able to go back, spend 2.3k gold here, so the 1.5 item differential will become likely just a 1 item differential, or at least a half item differential here. But you can maybe still see, Gore, why the accounting department feels somewhat comfortable taking some of these fights. It's because Deathwalker's really the one who's behind. The rest of the team may be somewhat closer in the gold department. Gold Fury, Clay Soldiers locked this one in. Kalas has dropped his wall in the back as well. It's a stun onto a couple, but unfortunately the Kabrakan will not survive this fray here. Sibby lurking in the backline, looking for some of the backliners, and Deathwalker will have to walk his way away from 3 or 4 members of Clay Soldiers. Wolfie uses the beads, dashes away. Agent's here to play as well. Deathwalker falls, Caspanify double, and now the gold lead gets big. It's the Gold Fury plus a couple for the Clay Soldiers.
Honestly, this kind of feels like Sibby just getting payback for the first few minutes of last game, right? Like, just doing whatever they can to shut down Deathwalker and Ice here. And it's working out for them. Not only does the accounting department lose out on the Fury, they also lose out on a couple of kills. They're going to lose out on the Scorpion. Well, that doesn't necessarily immediately translate to the Pyromancer or the Fire Giant. Does give a lot of map control over to Clay Soldiers. Still need another fight to guarantee themselves one of the big objectives on the right-hand side of the map, but with things going the way they are right now, especially with Executioner online after the Ichabal there for Caspanify, expect to start seeing this Jing Wei in the fights a little bit more often and really causing some trouble for the members of the accounting department.
It's tough here because on both sides of the map, we keep talking about the pillars, the stronghold in the solo lane, and then a slight lead over in the duo lane as well. 402 for Caspanify. Let's see what Ice can get done here. Use his ultimate just to delay some time. Ultimate rings through from Wolfie as well, but half HP on a Sun Wukong. I think Sibby will take that. I had to go back to base anyway. I have no mana. And so mid and jungle ultimate's down, and that's a pretty big strength check there, Gore. Sibby just walks away.
I mean, strength checks, right? Sibby's able to go in, say, all right, what's up? Walks out. Doesn't have his ult. Has bird form as always, but that knowledge of being able to get away with some of these is always going to be solid for you. Ice, again, it kind of feels weird. I see Wolfies at 2-0-4, and I think this Chiron's going to survive. I think this Chiron's going to be able to find a lot of last hits. Chiron's not the god I think of as like this 8-0-12 like hyper carry.
Right.
If Ice goes down, I don't know that they have someone that's going to be able to confidently take that place. That's a weird taunt right there for Agent. But either way, I think there's a lot of moments here where Clay Soldiers just have a lot more they can depend on. But if Ice dies here, that might be it.
Oh, luckily Agent didn't need the taunt. He probably would have liked to have had it, but it's Sprint used instead to close that gap. Ice now, I just poked his head into the wrong area. I don't think knowingly knowing what was going to happen on the other side. Deathwalker locked in. Oh my goodness, nobody from the accounting department can play the game at the moment. Deathwalker walks in, dies. Ice does the same just a few moments beforehand, and now it's Fire Giant. Looked at by the Clay Soldiers. Okeanos here, first big team fight maybe for both of these hunters. Half HP on the big objective. Kalas lurking. Wolfie there as well. Ultimates for the 3 remaining members of the accounting department, but Kalas just gets turned on. The wall goes down. What can Okeanos get done? Well, he can find one. And there's some damage from Wolfie as well. Talk about a big damage turnaround, but no chance you win that fight. 3 versus 5. Wolfie maybe a chance to do something here, but Clay Soldiers will take their kills and head on home.
I mean, happy with it as well. Like you said, being able to grab those kills, back off like it's nothing. 5-0-5 there for Caspanify. 4-0-5 for Sibby. I would argue Sibby may be in more danger 90% of the time than Caspanify, especially on Jing Wei. You know you're feeling pretty safe when you're playing someone like that. And they're just walking away. And admittedly kind of getting away with murder. Ice, they just full dunk on in that last fight and make it seem like it's nothing to kill him off. The follow-up thereafter is just kind of icing on the cake for them. They look to be doing something similar here. If they can find them just off guard, they will absolutely erase the jungler from the map.
That is just constant bait on the FG and leave over and over and over again. The Accounting Department maybe feel like they've got a win here and that the Clay Soldiers have not been able to take the Fire Giant just yet. Now everybody back on the map for the Accounting Department. We'll see what happens, though, if Deathwalker gets collapsed on here. Cavalry charges ready for the Guan Yu. Agent. Just the presence of the Athena is enough to force Deathwalker away from the fight. Kalas gets knocked up and knocked aside by Sibi. Interesting calls here around the Fire Giant, Gore. Maybe the Clay Soldiers just don't feel like they're strong enough to kind of brute force down this FG just yet.
Yeah, they're not strong enough to just brute force it down while the other team's around, right? Like, it's always too dangerous whenever anyone on the other side is alive, but you're not quite far enough ahead that you can just walk in there and feel so confident that you're just going to guaranteed get a Fire Giant. I like the fact that they've gone Pyromancer, right? They get the Greater Scorpion. They're getting the small objectives. Now they're lining up for an Oni Fury, which could be actually a much larger objective than what we've seen out of some of the others. But you don't have the confidence to just swing a Fire Giant quite yet in your favor. Kill on the Ice, I think almost guarantees you a win, but if you can knock down anybody else in the process, you're pretty happy with that. This Oni Fury should be theirs, but you never know. There's a lot of fight in this Accounting Department.
It's a quiet game for Kalas so far, 0-5-4 on the Cabrakan. Now's the time to turn things around. You will not get the steal. Kalas not today. Clay Soldiers get another Fury on their side, and the fight afterwards looking pretty good as well. Grasp of Death works on through, weaves into the jungle. Deathwalker leaving. Ice and Wolfie attempting to do the same. The Accounting Department team is split up. They are decimated. The Fury has gone to Clay Soldiers, and Gore, this gold lead is starting to get out of hand. You start to see some map pressure here shortly once the Oni minions join the fight. And these towers are going to be falling soon.
Yeah, this is one of those moments. If those towers weren't up, I'd start calling for game, right? And honestly, this is when you're mentally out of it, right? You're down 8,000 gold. You have 4 towers standing, but what does that mean to a team with Fire Giant? That's just gold on the map. You're already down 8,000. They can very easily hit 15,000 off of what's left just in terms of towers if they want to. They get those Oni minions. That's going to give them a lot of pressure all around. You were looking for a fight where you can get a Fire Giant? That's the key. I mean, Ice, you know where he is. Agent has him on the map on the other side of the world compared to where he needs to be. This should be a free FG, which is going to translate into a couple of other fights. It's one of those games that you can't call over because Accounting Department, their Titan is still alive. It is not exposed. They still have a ton of potential. But this is one of the most backs against the wall kind of fights to come back from. You are down 9,000 gold. Fire Giants up. You still have some of those Oni minions pushing down towers. You just lost one of the 4 you had left standing. You really have to figure out where you want to fight and how you want to fight now. You need to do it before Clay Soldiers can engage, and realistically you have to figure out what can Kalas do. He's 0-6-4 right now, not a big impact, has been just a little late on some of these steals, but realistically the setup hasn't been there either. And what can you get Ice to do? Ice was 6-1 just a little bit ago, now he's 6-3, has not been getting these kills. What can you do to protect this Ao Kuang and make sure that that transition into the late game, this is supposed to be the strongest point in the game for him. Show it, right? What can you do to make sure that he has that momentum behind him? And who is it that he needs to go back and kill, and how?
Ice just has not had that space to operate that we saw earlier on in the game. We thought that Ao Kuang was going to sort of snowball things out of control, but when the fights break out, Ao Kuang hasn't had the free casting ability to not only whittle down health bars, but find those executions. So 6-3-2 looks good, but it doesn't quite tell the story of the last few minutes. The 3 may be more indicative of the way the last couple of fights have gone for this Accounting Department team. Look at this, Clay Soldiers, they want to fight now. It's a cleanse used by Wolfie. Ice deleted by the Clay Soldiers here. It is a 1-for-1 trade. It's support, though, for jungler, and Accounting Department maybe feeling a little bit nervous about sticking around on this left side Phoenix. If you die here, you could be looking at game. And Accounting Department do forfeit the remaining health on their left side bird.
Lose the Phoenix. They lost a lot of towers. There's still one tier 2 still standing, technically. With Agent gone, I think it does kind of eliminate the prowess of being able to just wander into the base like you have no cares in the world. But it doesn't really stop the momentum that is in favor of the Clay Soldiers here right now. I mean, Agent's going to be back. Not necessarily the worst person to lose the Fire Giant buff either, so you're going to be getting that. The biggest thing is that those relics are down for another 100 seconds, so it's going to take a little while before Agent hits full capacity. But with the momentum in their favor, the gold in their favor, the items in their favor, I mean, you just now get I think he went from 0 to 100 on that Winged Blade. So you're going to have that slow immunity that's going to help so much in these team fights. I mean, I think you line up, knock down this last tier 2. You don't quite have enough time on the Fire Giant, I think, to really run it down in either mid or right to make things go the way you want, but you do have enough to make sure that your lead is so solid it's not impossible, but incredibly difficult to try and get back into this game. That's what this tower is, and if they go for this Phoenix, they're just going to be cutting it really close.
Yeah, we still got some time on the FG buff. It's only Agent who doesn't have it. You really want Caspanify there to work down this health. Oh my, the Phoenix health is just missing. Kalas blinks in. Decent wall there. Locks off the Clay Soldiers. Health bars middling, and Okeanos picks up the first kill of the fight, but Deathwalker stunned on in. That's a grasp of death, and Sibi will return the favor. Now it's half HP on the Phoenix. Okeanos full. Ice full. Wolfie full. Clay Soldiers, though, still feel confident enough to walk in, do the last bit of damage. When Deathwalker isn't there, the front line becomes tough to defend when Kalas had to go back as well to heal. So now it's left and right side Phoenix is gone. It's a tough sledding now for Accounting Department to defend their base.
Yeah, it's very difficult to figure out where you want to send it. I mean, look, there's fire minions pouring in on left, and yeah, Wolfie's back there, but it's still going to take a little bit. You got 2 waves to deal with over there. You get 1 wave of a grace period, I'll call it, on the right-hand side. That's just some normal minions. But now you're in this perpetual motion machine that is defending the base, which really prevents you from getting out and defending, say, a Primal Fury, a Fire Giant. It becomes incredibly difficult to get out of your base to really fight anywhere on equal ground for Clay Soldiers, or for Accounting Department, I guess, in this case. And so you either hope they take this last fight under the mid-Phoenix, or you really hope that Ice has a stellar pop-off moment here. 6 and 4 now, as things have just continued not to go their way. Kalas hasn't been able to get too much done either. Deathwalker is 0 and 5. I mean, there's a lot of places to really start kind of showcasing where things are going wrong. The hard part is figuring out how to really right that ship. Deathwalker, you can't really go in on your own for an engage the way that a Guan Yu who's ahead can. So they're going to melt through him if he tries to just cavalry charge into the backline. Same thing for Kalas. You can't just blink in and have fun because they'll kill you, just straight up. And so it's a very difficult nut to crack here. If Clay Soldiers can continue this, 1 more Fire Giant might just be it.
It does seem to look that way. We're still at a point now where XP meaning a little bit less. Okeanos will survive thanks to his crystal. XP is starting to mean a little less. Gold's still very important, though. I mean, full build for most of the players on Clay Soldiers. Still looking to upgrade those starters and round out the item builds for Accounting Department. It is Sigil of the Old Guard, though. Talking about finishing off the starter items there, Gore Miser. So
okay.
Deathwalker may be looking for some of that survivability that he desperately needs. 0 and 5 on this Guan Yu to maybe defend the mid lane Phoenix.
Yeah, getting that percentage reduction is going to be a big step up from the base tier. But again, it's one of those, I was curious because the other half of that, or the other upgrade, gives you like a 500 damage magical burst around you depending on what's going on. So it's such a weird item to have come through, and I wanted to see where he's going with it. Let's see if that percentage damage reduction is going to help him out here.
Yeah, you got to win now if you're Deathwalker, but unfortunately the cavalry charge will have to be used defensively for some backline peel as well. Sorega dashes on out. Agent has used his ultimate. Caspanify, the only one with the ultimate left for Clay Soldiers. Left side Phoenix's respawn, but the fire minions doing well and knocking down the remaining health bar. It's about to be 3 Phoenixes down. Clay Soldiers, a refreshed Fire Giant buff. Start to look towards the Titan here. Everyone's still alive. Ice has his ult. Okeanos does as well. You got to look towards the actives. Ferrocryk has both. Caspanify has both. The targets are going to be tough to lock down, but it's a taunt in onto Deathwalker. Kalas gets a stun over onto Agent. Caspanify stunned down as well. Half HP onto Sibi, looking for the stun onto Ice, and he's got it this time. Kalas somehow survives, but now Ice under some pressure. Ferrocryk from range gets the kill. And that might just be the kill that opens things up, but Deathwalker's turned one around. Sorega dies as well. Both junglers take a fall.
They can find a big taunt from Agent there to keep this fight going. Caspanify, really the one that you got to keep your eyes on now. Ferricrick's going to be able to get the damage down. Can this Hunter make the difference? Is it going to be Wolfie on the other side right now, fighting with these two tanks? It's really turning things around.
Oh, Grasp of Death walked away from. Oh my god, wait, the Titan, it just dies that fast. You think there's another fight that's going to happen, but it's not to be. The Clay Soldiers, Gormizer, walk on in. They didn't even need the kills by the end of the game there. It's just the junglers and Okeanos that are dead, and they just walk on in, grab the Titan, grab the set. Clay Soldiers make these standings a little bit more interesting.
That's so difficult, yeah, Clay Soldiers, or I guess against Clay Soldiers there. If you're accounting department, there's so many members with Fire Giant on the other side.
Yeah.
They've got such a massive gold lead. You've already kind of been down in the dumps. They're burning your relics. Your Phoenixes are gone. You got Fire Minions pouring in. Like, it's one of those scenarios that you really could, if you choose one of the things you have to isolate, it's easy, but there's 3 or 4 of them coming at you at any given time. Technically 5, considering there's 5 members on the other side. They just ran it down, and like you said, the Titan just dies. You don't need a fight if you can just kill the Titan insanely fast,
right.
So Clay Soldiers play that one smart.
Gore, it felt like Ice that was a bit isolated there by the end of the game. Thank you. I'm going to leave us with that one after a fantastic set. Clay Soldiers win this one in 3. We'll take a break in the desk. We'll round out the